Welcome back to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. I have a very important and special guest, an old mentor of mine, Travis Williams, here today with me. What's up, man?
What's happening?
Not too much, dude. Crazy day. My
don't
dog ran away, dude, when you got here. Shit. I thought I was going to be able to control myself, but I cannot do it.
You know, it was funny because when you brought him back, it was like a schnauzer, right?
Yeah.
And I just got a mini schnauzer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he like next month he'll be a year old.
Yeah.
Just bad.
Yeah, they bad, man. Mine is 7. Mine is 7 years old, but he is.
Do they
he's
calm
crazy.
down?
They don't. They don't calm down.
Well, that's bad news for
They
me.
don't calm down. Well, I want to thank you for being here today. The goal of this channel is to inspire and get people who are looking to get into the industry, people who are already in the industry, or just someone who's looking to adjust or change their career. And we have Travis here. Travis is the vice president of digital game development at Lightstorm Entertainment. So what I like to do is start where you are currently,
Sure.
and then go about what your day-to-day is like. You don't have to go into details if you can't, but what your day-to-day is like, and then we're going to go all the way back to 1991.
Back in time.
Yeah, we can go back to 91. So what is a typical day like at Lightstorm Entertainment as the vice president of digital game development?
Well, it's funny because nowadays it's a little different. Disney just bought Fox. You know,
Yes.
they merged.
Yeah.
Huge merger, and so now we're dealing with okay, where you were dealing primarily with like Fox people, now it's Fox and Disney people, and Disney's like a machine, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's cool. You have a whole bunch of new people to sort of deal with and associate with, but so my day to day now is figuring out who I need to call to get things done. But if it were just a smooth day, if it were just like a normal day, I've got a lot of different projects going on. So Lightstorm is a company that is run by John Landau and James Cameron. And so that is the Titanic, literally and figuratively, duo. So from Titanic to Alita Battle Angel to Avatar, which we're now making, 4 sequels.
That's awesome. So did he purchase or acquire that? And he
No.
just does his own film, his own projects through that studio exclusively?
No, they started this studio.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so Lightstorm is James Cameron and John Landau. It's always been that way.
Oh, okay.
And so it's the production company that handles every one of James Cameron's properties. So I'm the VP of gaming. So what that means is I have to deal with everyone sort of externally who's making the games, and be that bridge or that liaison between those people and the filmmakers. And so it's pretty challenging. So a day to day could be like getting a delivery, whether or not it's a full functioning game, whether or not it's art, concept, scripts, or whatnot. Doing our own sort of vetting of material, and then after that getting it prepared so that it can get approved by Jim Cameron or John Landau, or all the different people. I think we're a little unique in the fact that when you're doing like an Avatar product, which consumes 95% of my day, it's not like you're just talking to me. You're working with the producer of Avatar. You're working with the director of Avatar. You're dealing with the costume designers, everyone who's working on the movie itself, right? To the point where when you get like a ancillary material or materials that you're making for an Avatar game, most of the time they look indistinguishable from anything that the movie is doing. And so it's this nice sort of homogenous process where sometimes it's just a world of Avatar that we're building, Pandora itself. And so nothing we do is out of sort of canon, right? So if you're creating something on an Avatar product, whether or not it's a mobile game, a PC console game, or whatever, those things exist in a world. It's not like, oh, this is Elseworlds or a What If or something like that. No, all those
like
things
a spin-off, like some canon or something.
Yeah,
like that.
so all those things are things that get produced and get the blessing of us, the people who
That's
are
awesome.
creating it. So day to day is sort of like running around with your hair on fire, getting things approved.
So do you get contacted by people who may have interest in Avatar and go like, hey, we want to make a product, and then you're the person they go through, or
I'm the gatekeeper.
That's awesome, man.
I'm the gatekeeper. So it's So a lot of times, you're like, hey, that's pretty interesting, or oh no,
Not again.
not again, not
Yeah.
again. Jesus, right? So, but the vetting process, at least in my mind, is pretty simple. I mean, you take a look at, so Avatar came out in 2009, right? And cutting edge, just everything, right? And obviously, we're making more Avatar movies, and we will continue to be cutting edge. But if you don't bring that level of expertise to the table, I don't even want to start that conversation with you, right?
It's
Because
kind of a waste.
it's kind of a waste. It's sort of like when you look at Avatar and you go, man, that 3D was righteous. So the animation, everything. I mean, it really did sort of chart this path for photorealistic animation and rendering from a motion picture standpoint, right? And so what do I look like on the game side? Not taking it to the next level.
Yeah, not upholding that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's go back. Let's go way back.
Let's not.
No, we got to though. It's inspirational. There may be
Uh-oh.
people in the same position you were. So let's go back. So you got
How far back?
we going way back, man. So DeVry. All right, so DeVry. We all heard of DeVry.
Yeah.
I heard of DeVry. I seen the
Yeah.
commercials back in the day.
Yeah.
You went to DeVry.
I
DeVry
did.
Technical Institute. How was that? What? It's a vast difference from where you are now and
Sure.
where you started. So
Yeah.
what
Should
were
we
you doing
start
at
like
DeVry?
before I went
Yeah,
there?
what was your inspiration? Did you already know that you wanted to get into the games industry? Did you have
Wow.
a liking to art and comics first, or what was that entry gateway for you to get into this industry, starting back in 89, 91 time period?
Well, it started like way before then. I
Okay.
mean, it started, for me in the 5th grade.
Oh wow, you want to go way back?
That's
okay.
what I'm saying,
okay.
right? Like
5th grade. What were you doing in the 5th grade that
In-
made you
in-
go, "This is what I want to do"?
Well, it started with my mother. sort
Moms
of-
are great, man. Moms are great. That's awesome. I said that last time because
Word.
the other guy was like, "My mom, she helped me out a lot." Go ahead, man. That's good.
Mine's a little different,
Yeah.
right? So it's a few things. First, my mom made just enough money in the 80s in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where we moved into the white neighborhood, right?
Okay.
So we're in a white neighborhood, and when I'm in a white neighborhood, you go to white schools, right? So this is the first year. I'm in the 5th grade.
How old are you in 5th grade? What is that like? You
Well,
like
I'm always,
10 or something?
I'm always a year behind because my
Okay.
birthday's in December.
Okay.
Right. So I was 9.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, that
So I'm
sounds
9
right.
years old, and I arrived to this all-white school, and I was the only black person. At
No
that
teachers,
school.
no nothing, no counselors, no black.
Man, no
nobody?
janitors.
Oh man.
Like-
but you're talking about like that's like 84, 85? Yeah, that was like a long,
that's
Is that-
I'm
is
9
that-
years old, so that's
Is that 70s?
yes.
God damn. Well, yeah,
That's
things are different.
19. It's 1980.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And so I get to the school, and I'm already freaked out because I'm looking around. I'm like, no, for real. There's like no one black here at all. And I open my desk, and when I open my desk, and it's the first day of school, so it's like, no one's been in this classroom. I open the desk, and there's a red box, Dungeons and Dragons, box set.
That someone left there previously.
Yeah,
Right?
they had to. It was the first day of school, so they must have left it on the last day of school, and they just didn't clean this desk out. And we talk about like destiny.
Yeah, man. That's really crazy. That's like. It's like that Indiana Jones moment. You open the box and it's just like the lights gleaming on your
Or
face.
Pulp Fiction. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like when they open the suitcase and they're like, oh, what is that?
That's
The light
awesome.
shines in your face. So there's this red box Dungeons and Dragons set in there. And I'm like, what is this? So I open it up, and then that's, like when people say, like, when did you first find love? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was it. Like, I looked in there, man, and I didn't know before then what an elf was, what a dwarf was.
Or like you say, casting magic out of your hands, your fingertips.
For real.
Yeah.
And so, and then I still didn't really speak to people. I wasn't like the Travis, like who will speak to.
We all grow into what we have become now. So I wouldn't expect that you would have had no problems.
Yeah.
Or maybe you would have had a lot of problems.
So I took this book, these books, and I sort of just stuck my head and was just reading, like through lunch and all this other kinds of stuff, and just kept to myself. Then at lunch, these guys came over to me, and they said, "You play Dungeons and Dragons?" And I lied. I said,
wait, did you have the book with you? You took it with you, or they just saw you looking at it in class or something?
Oh, it's these books were my friends.
So, okay.
I had my head buried in it during lunch.
Okay.
And they said, "You play Dungeons and Dragons?" And I lied. I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, you want to play with us?" And let me tell you something. We talk about things that are that you believe, like your core beliefs, and I think that being a nerd, being a tech person or whatever, I found very few racist nerds, like people who are like into fantasy and science fiction, because when you find those people, they're so happy that you could talk about the same things, that it doesn't matter if you gay, straight, you black, you white, you whatever, you could be green. As a matter of fact, it might help if you green because they think you're an alien and they think, oh man, I done nerded up a little bit, right? So that was the start, right? And I truly believe that was supposed to happen in my life. And then it just went on from there. Like, and so after playing D&D, learning it, like, I started gaming on a regular, and I became, the dungeon master all the time.
Nice.
Right. And so when we go back to moms, for example, right? Like my mom's, she, like, look, my mom didn't understand me. I mean, she's a black woman from the South, right? So, and I remember this quote, like it sticks with me all the time. My mom just, I got all these comics and all these gaming materials around, and she said, "Travis, your knowledge of elves and magic is never going to get you anywhere."
Oh, wow. Little did she know that was the key.
That it really was.
Yeah.
So now, been gaming for, all through, since that point, through high school. I remember actually not having enough money to buy a Dungeons and Dragons book that I really wanted, but I read this ad for this other game, and so when I went to the gaming store, I had just enough money to buy this other game, but not the Dungeons and Dragons book because I didn't have money for tax.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
goddamn tax.
Yeah, I know, right? So I bought this other book, and the book was called Ars Magica.
Okay.
Now, Ars Magica was a RPG that was all about magic, and to this day, I've never seen a pen and paper RPG that had better magic than Ars Magica. So I learned it, and then I went to my group, who I was a dungeon master, and I said, "We're playing Ars Magica." They got pissed. They were like, "What is this? I thought we were playing Dungeons and Dragons." And I'm like, "Nope, we're going to change it up a bit." Right? So I started that, and throughout high school, we played nothing else but my handcrafted adventures inside of Ars Magica.
Oh, wow. It was that good? Like, so you're saying that Magica lets you create your own thing instead of going from the stories that D&D normally has you follow?
Yeah, like, in D&D, things are usually like pretty rote. Like, okay, your 5th level, you do this. Your 6th level, you do that, and so on and so forth, right? There was no mystery in it, and and you actually had to go, in my opinion, a little further to use your imagination. But this other game, man, like from the jump, it was like to be imaginative meant like you were a better player. And I was blessed with a group of very smart people. These cats I'm still friends with today.
That's awesome.
Right? So we did that all throughout high school. And then my mom, once again, says, okay, we're going to move to Atlanta. Right?
Man, she stripped you away from your boys.
And I got pretty upset about it, but I was just like, well, you got to go. You got to go. So what I did is I wrote a letter to the people who made Ars Magica, and I said, hey, can you take a look at all the stuff that I did throughout the years? And so I packaged it up nicely, sent it off. And so when I did, one of the people actually wrote me back and said, this is really good. Like, do you want to publish this? Right? And I didn't feel right. I was like, no, I don't want to publish it, because I felt like, yes, it was my story, but it was the story of me and all my boys playing this game. And I didn't feel like intellectually that was honest, because it's not just my creation, it was our creation. But I was really happy that it was that much of a quality product at the end, where they would even ask me. So that person, Lisa, she says, I told Lisa, and this is back when we're writing like paper, like it's not email.
Yeah, there's
right?
there's no emails, there's no text messages. There's none of that stuff.
No, I'm sending
no
her
DMs.
I'm straight up sending like normal, like written mail,
licking the stamp.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And she says, "Oh, you're moving to Atlanta." And I said, yeah. And she says, we just got an investor in the company, and his only edict is that we move to Atlanta. Right? And I'm like,
man, that's crazy.
I'm like, word? And I said, I tell you what then, when y'all get there, holler at me. I'll help you out. Right? Okay. Now, this D&D group that I have, I'm sorry, it's a long story. But
no, that's fine, man. That's fine. So we're still talking about you. All right, so you've been playing for a while with them. So you started in 5th grade, but how old were you when you wrote that letter? Were you like 17? Oh, okay. All right, so that's a
yeah.
Okay.
So now
dang, you had years of playing.
Yeah. So I would like to think I was pretty damn good at that point, right? Yeah. So at this point, like I remember us sitting around the table, gaming. And my best friend still today, his name's James. James goes, man, wouldn't it be cool to like do this for a living? And in my mind, I was like, I don't know about y'all.
You're like, can you do that? Is that something you can even do?
No. That wasn't even a question. I was like, I don't know about y'all, but this is exactly what I'm gonna do. Y'all can do whatever you want to do, but this is what I want to do, right? So. Now I'm in graduated high school. I'm in Atlanta. And ever since I was 9, I taught myself how to program, right? But I hated school. Mm-hmm. I hated school, like with an all-consuming passion, right? And I always thought that I was misplaced in school, because like the subjects that I loved, I would straight up get A's in. Everything I hated, C's and D's, because I just wasn't interested. So the prospect of going to sort of a traditional university was something I was straight up not interested in. I was not interested in, because I knew the first 2 years of that would just be elevated high school, right? And if I wanted to learn about Chaucer, if I wanted to learn, any of those things, I felt like that's what life was about. I didn't need that, right? And I already knew that, because I would go research that on my own. I wanted to learn how to be a better programmer so that I could go and make games. So that's where DeVry came from. DeVry says that their initial pitch was, we'll show you how to program first day. And I'm thinking, well, I already know how to program, so I'm on board for that. I don't feel like I want to go to a traditional university to learn about the Canterbury Tales. It's just not where my head was.
Because you're programming. If you went to a 4-year, you would have been doing math, science, reading, speech class. And
the thing about it is I remember, because some of my friends, some of the people that I gained with were technical too, and they went to those universities, and that's the curriculum that they were already on. And I was just like, well, first of all, I'm a better programmer, and I don't want to do that. So, and not only that, but just learning how to program back in the the late 80s.
Yeah, it's different.
It just wasn't. It wasn't obviously what it is now.
What were you programming on? Were you using like an old Apple, or were you using like
oh man,
doing like the Snake game? I know that was around. That's what we was playing.
It was an Abacus. My first computer was a VIC-20.
Okay.
A Commodore VIC-20. Then I got a Commodore 64. Later on, I had an Amiga, and then finally in the like late 80s, moving over to PC. So as far as what I was programming in, I started in BASIC and assembly language. In school, I started to learn COBOL and VSAM and JCL, and then started doing C. And this was real early stuff. So
early C.
Yeah, early C. So I get to DeVry, but the funny part about DeVry is that they were teaching people how to program, but they were teaching people how to program for like the New York Stock Exchange, for example.
Ah, okay.
Right. And so I remember actually during like freshman sort of orientation, and the professor would say, ask people like, what do you want to do, with your degree and all this? And, people would be like, yeah, I want to go to the New York Stock Exchange, and, or I want to do these counting, and, and so on and so forth. And, and I'm like, yeah, I want to make games. And the professor led the class and laughing at me.
Yeah, I bet everybody's head turned like, what is this guy talking about? Games.
Games?
Yeah.
What, are you crazy? No one does that. Like, get out of here with that mess, right? And I'm, once again, found myself sort of,
isolated, yeah.
But this is exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, standing out.
So White Wolf moves to Atlanta. Well, at the time, it was actually called Lion Rampant.
Okay.
So Lion Rampant moves to Atlanta along with this other company called White Wolf Magazine. Now,
Okay.
White Wolf Magazine and Lion Rampant decided they're going to merge and become one company in Atlanta called White Wolf Game Studio.
Okay.
So
And you were there for 3 years? This was
I was there like before it was even that company.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like an employee as much as I was like a professional helper.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying?
I see it says game designer and then director of PR.
Yeah.
You like, what do you want to do, son? What do you want to call yourself?
It was White Wolf was so small then that you were. It was like you're Jamaican in that. I'm the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
I got 3 jobs.
I got 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Gotta go to work. So for me, when White Wolf got there, when White Wolf really got there, I remember going over there and talking to the heads of the place, Stuart, who's no longer with us, Mark, and Lisa. Now Lisa was, she was the person who sent me the mail saying, hey, you good,
right. Yes.
And so on and so forth, so I'm like, oh man, like, I get to meet all these people and so on and so forth, right? So I came through, and I remember because Mark was like sitting on the couch, like eating blueberry Pop-Tarts, like
Blueberry specifically?
I remember that.
Did you see the frosting and you're like, I know what that is?
Well, first of all, I like, you can't front on blueberry Pop-Tarts, man. They dope, right? But at the same time, I was like, man, like this is odd, and I just said to Mark, I'm like, because he's, Mark was the game designer who made this magic system that I loved, and so like he was like, oh, this is my idol, like why is he like, why
he eats the same thing I eat,
yeah,
like what are you doing?
And he's got a mouthful of blueberry Pop-Tarts, and he said, yeah, my mom never let me eat, Pop-Tarts when I was little, so now I'm just eating them all. And they're actually watching Glory on VHS, with Denzel Washington, and I remember that like it was yesterday, right? And so I went over there, and within a span of a couple hours, I convinced them that I knew their RPG better than they did.
That's awesome.
Right. And they were like, hey man, like you want to go to shows and like be the storyteller, like so that we could show people how cool everything is. And I'm 18, and I'm like
still a little green. Surprise,
man! I'm all the way green, right? Like, and because like it's not often where like you can,
those opportunities don't come up all the time, especially back in that time period.
That's Well, not just that, but you're sitting there with some of your idols, right? And they're telling you you're good enough, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, when people watch, like, these reality shows, like, So You Think You Can Dance or American Idol, and these people who are singers or dancers are sitting across the aisle from all these people, and they go, "You dope." I feel that.
Yeah,
You see
that was
what
a
I'm
big
saying?
deal. Yeah, it was a big
I feel
deal.
that. So they say, yeah. So let's do this. So now I'm working at a gas station, going to school, and I actually start being a professional storyteller for them during conventions.
What were those conventions? Because like E3s, I don't think E3 was around yet.
No,
like, what kind of
dude.
convention are you talking about?
I'm talking about like RPG conventions, like Gen Con, Dragon Con, especially because we're in Atlanta. So these are like pen and paper comic conventions, right? Okay. And I kind of got over still being the only black person, but it was what it was. Now, so White Wolf becomes a thing. We start working on this game that I think was, aside from, in my opinion, and, look, I'm biased here, but aside from Dungeons and Dragons, like the storyteller system in the World of Darkness and Vampire, you don't get more OG as far as role-playing games. And that's what we did in 89 and 90. We started gothic horror story RPGs. So I was always, if I wasn't in school, if I wasn't at my job, I was at White Wolf. And they said, "Look, Travis, like, you're here all the time. Like, seriously, you're here all the time. Like, why don't you just work here?" Like,
that's even the best way too, because they even just, why don't you just work here, man? That's awesome.
Yeah. And so
you didn't even have to ask for a job. It's like they're just like, when can we put you on payroll? When do you want to start? Yeah.
And so for me, now I'm a year away from graduating out of DeVry, and I said, okay, so I got a decision to make. Do I get myself more in debt and finish out this, and finish this out, and then go try to make games? Or do I just continue to make games?
Oh, wow. Okay. Crazy. So you didn't finish school in DeVry? You left early? Like an NBA star?
There was no point, son. I got drafted, right? Like, literally, I got drafted, right? And so so where all those positions come in, like director, PR, game designer, this, that, and the other, it was just because there was only like 4 employees at White Wolf at the time.
That's a big deal,
right? Yeah. Everybody else, and so to get there, to do what you needed to do, there was a lot of hats that people had to wear, and PR was one of them. Just because I was always on the front lines, I was the person telling the stories, running the games, and so on.
Yeah, so you became the face of the studio at that time, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
No, that's
awesome.
Scary. So when it comes to role playing games or where I come from, so that was it. And it's strange when you think about it, because as soon as I got on, and I can tell a lot of stories. I'll spare you, but the Lisa,
same Lisa,
she was like, you know what, like, White Wolf's cool, but I kind of want to do my own thing. I got some plans I want to do, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, well, Lisa, like, what are you gonna do? Like, we're in Atlanta chilling. Everything's good. Like, what are you gonna do? And she says, I'm gonna move to Seattle, right? And I'm like, okay. So we'll start a company. See how that works, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, I mean, and so you're
like, everything is good here. Why are you gonna change? Why are you gonna change?
So now, so check this out. So finally, I talked to Lisa later, and she said, we came up with a name for the company. We think it's going to do well and all this other kind of stuff. I said, what's the name of the company? She says, Wizards of the Coast. I said, that's a dumb name.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So Lisa, the person who got me in the industry, was one of the founders of Wizards of the Coast. So,
that's awesome.
So I was there during the whole Magic the Gathering through, all the Pokemon stuff, and so and so that was the first time where I felt like, man, lightning in a bottle. But it's a recurring theme for me.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So we're gonna go up White Wolf, and then producer at Game Tech. So you were there in Atlanta for 3 years, and then you moved to go to Game Tech.
Yes.
So, oh man, was there any regrets not going to Wizards of the Coast, not following Lisa? And,
no.
Or was there an opportunity there or not?
I mean, there were plenty of opportunities.
It seems like she was like saying, we should start a business together.
No, like she was like, I got to get out of here.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I don't know, it's pretty good here. I should, do my thing here. So stayed there for at White Wolf for a while. But the thing is that I was always put in front of video game companies and said, hey, we should do something, with you guys, which started my process of actually getting to know even more of my idols in gaming.
So in that transition of White Wolf into Game Tech, you kind of leaned a little bit more towards let's go into gaming, video games, as opposed to staying on pen and paper.
Yeah, because I was coder, right?
Yeah,
so
true, yeah.
and because I was a coder, because I knew about games in particular, I was the one that would always go to these other companies and say, hey, we need to do like a vampire game and so on and so forth. Which funny kind of led me to this company that I held in high regard called Interplay. Started speaking with a bunch of people from Interplay. One dude, his name was Rusty, Bucket. He and I became good friends. The guy who did their business dev, his name was Phil Adam. And the funny part about Phil is he says, well, we're working on this new RPG. It might be good, and we need a system for it. And so I'm talking to him about it, and he says, I think we're looking at using GURPS. And then I was like, I hate GURPS.
What's GURPS? What's GURPS?
It stands for Generic Universal Role Playing System.
Okay.
And it's a set of rules, but it wasn't really a setting. And I was like, you don't license rules in a game. Usually the rules are stuff you want to hide and give people the experience themselves. And so we started going back and forth. And they says, no, we're going to use GURPS. And I'm like, all right, fine. But good people, let's stay friends.
Yeah.
Right. So they actually ended up using GURPS for a little while at Interplay, and then developed their own system that they ended up calling Special. And so the game that they were working on was Fallout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So finally, after talking to mad companies and stuff like that, and them going, well, I don't know if we're ready to do that, but I always got job offers. They were like, you know a lot about games. You should come over here. You should come here. You should come here. And eventually, like, my heart wasn't in pen and paper anymore. And so when Game Tech came along, they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Right. No, that's awesome. You worked on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Oh man, you worked on a lot of big games that were big back in the day. That's awesome.
Let me tell you, like,
but you were only there for a year and 4 months. What happened? What did you get enticed by something else, or was it not what you thought it was going to be? You don't have to go into crazy details because, like myself, we know a lot of people in the industry, and this is not about like undermining or saying anything.
No, of course not. So, Game Tech was a whirlwind. I mean, the place was crazy. Like, but the funny part is that a lot of people that I met at Game Tech are still in business and still doing really well.
You mean like Game Tech themselves are still around?
No. I mean like the people that I met inside of Game Tech have been in this business for as long as I have, and doing quite well. I mean, so when I got to Game Tech, I remember this. They were like, okay, there's this new developer. We're gonna send you out to see them. They're in Pennsylvania, and just help them out, right? And then I'm like, okay. So I fly out to Pennsylvania, to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and when I'm in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and like it's like this town that time forgot or whatever.
Like Radiator Springs, right?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? What was it? It was Ryan Brandt and Mark Cerament, and the small developer was a company called Take-Two Interactive, right?
Wow.
And so I was their first external producer.
And these companies were in their fledgling, like they were just starting out.
Yeah, this is like 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And so so being there for Take-Two's sort of genesis, and so working with Capcom, then doing Street Fighter on the PC, realizing that, and this is gonna date me too, but like you couldn't have a 6-button controller on a PC when I made Street Fighter, because there were parallel ports that you would have to use to do the joysticks. And the problem with parallel port is that it could do only one instruction at the same time through the pipeline. So you couldn't technically do a Dragon Punch,
right?
Because it's a combination of two inputs at the same time. And so we actually had to build a custom 6-button controller for a PC back then. So, working through that, eventually doing things like when the PlayStation first came out, for example, leaving Game Tech, then eventually going to Acclaim, for example, still working with Take-Two, and they wanted to do a fighting game with Dungeons and Dragons characters, right? And I was like, all right, I could help out with that. And it was the first demo disc on a PlayStation ever, was Iron and Blood that I did. So, paving ways there. So awesome. So that's like this recurring theme, like throughout my career. It's like being the first person to do this or do that.
A pioneer.
Yeah. And so like, and I think out of Game Tech though, there was I had an AP at the time who was a really bright dude, and his name was Vince. And so Vince was there in the producer pool, Larry Pacey, just a lot of talented guys. Now Vince is, like most people know Vince because he created Call of Duty.
Oh, wow.
Like I just know Vince because he was my boy back in the day working together, So a lot of seeds that, like the head of like third party relations was my boy at Game Tech, So like so many people like, like the head of, now I'm forgetting, I think it's Paradox Entertainment was my boss, and now he's working on a vampire game, White Wolf vampire game. We were all at Game Tech. So, I mean, if there's any bit of advice I could give, like, fledgling like people, is don't burn your bridges. You never know like who you're gonna run into again. And think of the people that you are either in school with or at the same job. It's almost like your graduating class, right? Because if they're good, they're gonna be around. And just keep good terms with people, right? Because you never know if they're gonna be in a position to help you out. And so that's always been amazing for me, to be in a business so long, is like seeing other people like and where their career takes them. And what I've learned is like never to say no or that can't happen. And one of my favorite sayings is all great truths begin as blasphemy. Right? And no matter how much I know, I never want to tell people no, as much as I go, well, my experience says that's doubtful. But please do go ahead, because otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. You're never going to do anything that's really fun. You're never going to do anything that's really cool if you just kind of keep doing what everybody's doing. Right? Be bold, man, because you just might make it. And if you don't, fail spectacularly, right? Because I think I've learned more from my failures than I have from my successes, because I think your successes embolden you to this is the only way to do it, or I'm right, and all this other kinds of stuff, right? But when you take that ass whooping, like when you take that L on a game that is not good or a concept that is not good, what it does is it allows you to go, yeah, I'm not going to go left this time, because left is where that ass whooping is, right? So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do something different. And when you work with people enough, like the saying I say, it's like, let's dedicate ourselves to brand new mistakes, right? Let's not do the old ones no more. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, so when you step through just all the places I've been, having those successes, like being in a room one time when Sam Hauser, is sitting down, and he's got this top-down game, and he's, and he says, well, I'm not going to do a British accent, but he's like, but he's like, okay, so basically the gameplay is like you're this criminal, and you go around stealing cars and all this other kinds of stuff, and me going, hey man, I don't know if people are going to let you go around just shooting people and stealing cars and all that. I don't even think Sony's going to allow you to put that on a PlayStation. And then my boys out in Pennsylvania, but now in New York, Take-Two said, I think we're going to do it, right? And that's how Grand Theft Auto started, right?
It's pretty cool.
So like being at the point where, like, I mean, I straight up told Vince one time, he gave me this game concept, and he's like, oh yeah, man, when you're in a first person shooter, like most of the time you just read your mission and then you just kind of go out and do your mission. That's not how we're going to do it. Like, people are going to come up to you and talk to you and do all this other kinds of stuff. And I'm like, Vince, come on, man. Come on.
Vince was a forward thinker, it sounds
Dude,
like.
let me
man,
tell you
that's
something.
crazy.
He went to 2015, and when they put out Medal of Honor, where you were on that U-boat and you look to your left and you look to your right, and it wasn't like a screen of people telling you what it was like to be, on the beach at Normandy. You straight up were there, right? And I still remember that feeling. Going, damn, Vince, you won, man. You won, right? So every time I look at anything that Vince and his squad is doing, right, no matter how crazy I think the concept is, I'd be like,
make it happen. Make it happen.
Hey,
That's awesome.
I learned my lesson by doubting that dude. Like,
that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. So from Acclaim, you're there for 2 years and 8 months.
Yep.
And then from there, you went from executive producer. You stayed in the producer line of things, it looks like.
Yeah.
Instead of the game design.
Yeah.
What changed for you to get out of
Bad
being
management.
a designer? So you figure, hey, I need to step into more of a management role so I can fix the things I've seen that are problems.
Yeah, like look,
okay.
Like, and this is common, like this is common, I think, at every job, not just gaming jobs. People who are where the rubber meets the road like to blame management for everything, right? They'd be like, man, if my boss would just let me do my thing, or if I, this, and this, and this, and this. And sometimes that's true. I'd say more often than not, that's true, right? And so when I was at Game Tech in particular, I didn't think I had supportive management. And I think I had meddlesome management more so than anything else. And so so I felt like as a designer, I wasn't empowered. Maybe I had control over the horizontal, but I didn't have horizontal and vertical, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, man, if I'm in a position to like make some changes, I should do that. I should make those changes. And so I said, I'm gonna do less of this design put myself in a position where I can affect the overall health of a product. And so I started at, on the AP level, and then eventually just moving up the ranks into full production. Because what I learned is that as a producer, you could be meddlesome. Right? Like as a producer, you could say, no, don't do this, do that, and there's no one in a position to go, no, because you're the boss. Right.
Did that make it easier transitioning into that for you because of the caveats you get of being like, I said, do this. I want it green. I want it blue. Turn this over. Rotate it around. I don't like this. Or was it a hard transition because you're kind of taking the creative side to the backseat and going more in a management side to like orchestrate and be a conductor in a sense? Or was it? How did you adapt with that?
Well, I mean, the role of production has changed a lot. Right, like it has changed a lot in the time that I've been doing what I'm doing. I had teams that were like 5 people, right? So even if you had a producer hat on, you still did a lot of design. You still did a lot of that stuff, right? But it was just that you had more power to change things, right?
It sounds like at that time, what is called now is like you were a game director pretty much as opposed to a producer.
That's exactly
because those are 2 separate tracks now.
Yes, yeah.
When you look at people in their titles and you're like,
right.
If you're the producer, why are you trying to be the game director or the game designer? If you're a game designer, it's like, why are you acting like a producer, man? Like,
yes.
So,
yeah.
But at that time, you were able to do both.
Yeah. At that time, I mean, like when I was at Game Tech, for example, like you're the producer. That meant, QA. What's that? Nah, bruh. You test your own games. You write your own manuals. Like that's just how things were, right? And so going from it was funny, like going from Game Tech, for example, that was the better part of, at its best, maybe 200 people internationally, to going to Acclaim that have 400 people in one location, for example. Like when I went to Acclaim, I had like 10 people who did my job, and what I meant was 10 people who helped me do my job, not 10 people who were producers, 10 people who helped the producers. And we didn't, at Game Tech, we got happy because we got a QA person. There's a whole QA building at Acclaim, right? So I was happy that I grew up in this environment where I got to do those jobs, because I think that when you start getting up in the upper management, the more you know about how the sausage is made, I think the more effective you are, because you can be empathetic to people who are in those particular positions now, right? Some people haven't, and it's a crime. So when leaving from design to go into production, and I think this is a trap a lot of people in production get into, is they still want to do those jobs that they left instead of doing the job that they're doing, right? And on a producer side of things, your job is to empower. Your job is to enable. Your job is essentially to be that bulldozer and make everybody else's job easier so they could focus on what they're doing, right? And a lot of times, bad producers don't understand that. Like bad producers want to still be a designer, they still want to be an artist, or they still want to do all these other
I couldn't agree more. It makes perfect sense. I've worked with a lot of people who didn't have a discipline outside of production in the industry, and they went right into production from like QA. And a lot of times from that avenue, they don't understand how long it takes to do things. They'll be given estimates that are just like to the wind, and you're like, there's no way this should take that long, but they don't know. And so you get these bloated out like pipelines or bloated out schedules for things that just make no sense, and then everybody's rubbing their head like,
how did this happen?
How are we gonna make this happen? Like, what's going on?
And I think that if having sort of a good grasp, at least in one of the different aspects of game creation, will help you be a producer. I wouldn't recommend anyone be a producer. I mean, nowadays QA is so sophisticated. I believe you can come from QA.
You can because QA is it's not just about taking notes and just playing the game. Like QA is a vital part of the success of projects.
Well, now especially, you can't. I mean, the level of sophistication that we're talking about now. I mean, like I wouldn't have the stones to be a QA person today. I mean, they're a special breed at this point, right? So, So when you are a producer, I feel like you should know enough about someone's art to be a pain in the ass, right? To ask the right questions, to make sure that they get what they need, or you know, if you don't know what an animator is going through, or what an artist is going through, or what a designer is going through, what your sound guys are going through, you can't empathize. You can't, you know, or when someone gives you estimates on how long it's going to take to get from point A to point B, you can't critically kind of go, are you sure? Like, that sounds a little short, or that sounds a little long, or
it'll make it harder for you to plan and execute on what you need to do, because you're being told by one guy it's gonna take him a month to do something, but other people are telling you, oh, I can get it to you next weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, in particular, like, you know, not to brag on you, but I remember when we used to work together, and it really became apparent, like, you animate real fast, like you know, and with quality. No, I mean, it was pretty scary. I remember that. I remember, like, the first week that you had got there, and we gave you like this alien to animate, right? And I was, you know, and we were like, okay, so you got 5 animations, Ed. Like, you know, see you at the end of the week or whatever. And I remember that too. And like at the end of the day, you had like 3 animations done, like, and I was like, the first day, like, what? And so the funny part was is I was like, I know this animation's trash. I just know it's garbage, right? And then I looked at it, and then at that point, you know, you would look at your other animators and you'd be like,
somebody lying up in here.
Somebody lying. Now, either Ed is the best thing since sliced bread, or, you know, like somebody got to step their game up, because he making y'all all look bad. I remember that.
I think I remember that.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh, man,
I was just
crazy.
like, everybody knew, like, the jig was up, man. Ed came to play, right? And so for me, that's it. But that's all about production, right? All about production sometimes is, you know, I used to call it, nowadays, we you know, like, and that's the funny thing about, like, this industry now, like, we have agile, you know,
development,
agile development, right? Where you can look at velocities now, and you could tell, like, how fast people, you know, crank.
Yeah, with things. Like, I think it's like Jira, Scrum, Waterfall, all our stuff is what people are using right now.
But the funny part about all that is, it's like, you know, I used to call it like the coefficient or whatever. Like, when a particular person on the team would tell me how long it's going to take them, I used to have a little multiplier over their head, like, you know, and I'd be like, okay, so Troy says it's going to take him 10 days.
Yeah.
But I go over and look at Ed, and he's got a 0.5 multiplier. So I'm going to just, you know, so that's really 5 days worth of work, right? So it was, you know, it was crazy, but like, your instincts on the production side of things can sink or ship a product. But yeah, so you know, going from like, okay, I'm going to design something, to, okay, I'm going to produce something. For me, what it became is that I think a lot of producers think that, you know, the product is their responsibility, and I believe that the product is your responsibility, but I think it's also the side effect from managing people correctly. Yeah. Right.
That's important. It's important to make sure you understand each person and not kind of group them in. It'll get you a lot further faster.
When I talk to people about game development in particular, I bring up these pictures, and I said, this is what people think a development team is. And, you know, it's this generic picture with a bunch of nerds, people with glasses and, you know, pocket protectors and all this other kinds of stuff. And I said, what a development team really is. And then I show them a picture of a rock band, right? Something real outrageous too, like Kiss or Poison or Motley Crue or something like that, because that's truly what it is, right? Like, it's a bunch of rock stars. You don't make great products without rock stars. Now, most rock stars, or most groups, get into it heavily because one person doesn't respect the other person's, you know, deal. And when you start talking about, like, you know, for me, I go back and I think about hip hop stuff sometimes, and I think about, like, why is Run DMC awesome? You know, why is Outkast awesome? And it's because they took these 2 different sort of disciplines, or 2 different, you know, sort of perspectives, mashed them together and made awesome.
Yeah, they made
product,
something
right?
magical, something different.
Yeah, but it's usually that creative difference that also drives people apart, right? Eventually, right?
It's straining.
Yeah,
but you got to know how to control that.
Right. So if you're a producer, That's your job. That's your job to say, hey, chocolate, respect the peanut butter. Yeah. For real, right? And a lot of times it's because you don't know what the other person is going through, what it takes to actually get from point A to point B. You lack that perspective. You lack that respect. And so a producer stands in and he says, hey, man, look, it took them 3 weeks to make this tight. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, right? And that's what you do. So good production, you don't even see it. Yeah. It's like your job's awesome to go to. Yeah. Bad production, everything's out of whack. You don't know what's going on. You know, it's
you blasting out emails without factual information.
It's like, you know, right? And so one of the things I like to do a lot of times, and you know, because as a producer, sometimes I feel like, you know, you're a paratrooper. You know, you get dropped behind the lines, behind enemy lines, and now you got to fight your way to the, you know, to what you got to get to. And so a lot of times in production, you get thrown into a problem or a situation that you didn't create.
But you got to solve it.
You got to solve it, yeah. Right? And so one of the things I like to do, the first conversations I usually have with dev teams is I break all the disciplines up. I'll put art over here, code over here, design over here, and so on and so forth. And I go, what's this game about? Like, what's this game about?
Wait, you ask each discipline what the game is about individually or as a department to see if everybody's in the same page? Okay. Yeah, because I remember back in the day, I remember when design documents and stuff would come out, they were ever changing. And you're like, nobody's reading design documents? You're like, you got to read the design. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, no one reads.
You can't just make the stuff. You got to read it.
Right? Yeah. And so, you know, and the funny part now is because games are so expansive now, you know, even to write a design document now, I mean, you do, but it's more about the spirit of what that thing is, right? So when I take these disciplines and I split them up and I go, what's this about? What's it about, right? And if I get all different answers, you're screwed.
That's
right?
a good way to start.
If I get all the same answers, I go, I could work with this. I can make this happen, because you have to understand, like, everyone brings something different to the table. Once again, you know, bringing back the sort of band metaphor, right? Like, what does it take to write a melancholy song? Like, everybody's got to be depressed. So you ask the bass player, like, give me something that's depressing. You know, you the lead vocalist, like, give me something that's depressing. Drums, the same thing, right? Everyone's going to approach it differently. And because everyone approaches it differently, when it all comes together, it seems to mesh well because it comes from that same sort of emotional wellspring, right? And that's how to get creative people to do the damn thing.
To be in line.
They have to own it. They have to own it, because, you know, art is going to tell you how to do something that design won't, because they just don't have that, you know.
They're different.
They're just different. But when they all go, oh man, I never knew this or I never knew that. Like, an audio designer can take an elephant walk and make it traumatic or comical, right? Just with audio. Right? And the same thing, an animator could do the same thing, right? And so once you get them aligned, that's where the magic happens, man. And so for me, I felt like, yes, I can sort of take ownership of design if I'm on the production side of things.
Right. Because you have those chops from the past to back you up.
But instead, what I want to do is I want to identify, like, the badass person in all of these different areas, give them ownership of this process, make sure that they're not, you know, they're not gated or impeded in any way. Okay,
empowering them,
empower them, because to make a great game, you need 110%. But no one gives you 110% because you say so. They give you 110% because they want to. So your goal, your job as a producer is to make people want to, okay? Because that's when you get the extra hours. That's when you get, like, you know, someone, you know, taking a shower and being like, oh man, that's how to make that work. Or you know, they have to own it, because if they don't, you're going to get the 9 to 5. Yeah. But that's not what you need to, that's what you need to make passable or good. But you won't get great at 9 to 5. Not in this business.
And people think that crunch is the way to go, which it isn't, because like you're saying, crunch is still you forcing someone or telling someone they have to be there, and you're still not gonna get that 110%.
Well, I have my stance when it comes to crunch is this: like, crunch usually, in my mind, is a fallout of bad management. You either told someone that you're going to do this by an impossible date. Okay, someone hands you an impossible date that you
didn't fight back on.
Yeah, that you didn't fight back on,
Yeah.
because some of the most the two most powerful letters in a producer's repertoire are N and O, right? And that comes from all areas, even upper management. Like telling them, no, that will not happen. No, that is not possible. Because if you kind of maybe, then you're going to find yourself in that situation. So for me, crunch is, it should be self-inflicted. And what I mean by self-inflicted is that, maybe you will have to crunch, maybe you won't. But when you are crunching, don't just crunch because I need extra hours on this game, right? Crunching is like, I'm going to take this hill. Design, animation, art, sound, code. What is it that we need to take this hill? Okay, so we'll take this hill, but everybody knows what we need to do in order to get there. That's what you crunch towards. You don't crunch because you just need more hours. You crunch because there's a clear objective that you need to do. And that shouldn't be expected. But if everybody's giving you that 110%, they understand why. Don't just crunch because...
And then it won't even be crunch at that time. It'll be like what you're saying. People are going to end up staying till 7, till 8 as a collective group. And then everybody's in the same mindset. You know what you're working on. You can pass it off because the guy is here. You're getting stuff done. You're getting it in the game. And no one said a word about crunch. You just noticed that, oh, shit, people are excited and they're getting their work done.
Well, so that's the thing. When you say, to me, I found that the word no, I tell people all the time, that's like my favorite word. I'll wake up from a deep sleep and no, that's.
I'm surprised you don't have a card in your wallet that just says no on it, and you be flashing around work like, boom,
no,
this one's yours, and that one's yours.
Not gonna do it, nah, bruh. So in my mind, the only more effective word in production, or words in production rather than no is thank you. People don't realize how important thank you is. If people are crunching, even if it's mentally, and then they do something big, or they do something they thought they couldn't do, just say thank you. I see you. Thank you. Right? Because a lot of times, man, people don't necessarily need a raise. They don't need this or that. They need to just know that they're respected. They just need to know that their hard work is recognized. And so when you take someone to the side and say, thanks, I appreciate you. Or even publicly, yo, girl, you did the damn thing. So everybody knows. That's all most people need in order to feel like, okay, I matter. And when you've got these games now that, I talk about, when I started, man, teams used to be 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Who makes games with 5 people now?
I think only mobile or those garage indie type people. But again, they're still coming together with a crazy skill set of wearing multiple hats. And it's still very rare to have a team that small be successful. We're not talking about just getting together on the weekends and then just, chilling and hopefully something comes out of it. It's very rare to find a group of 5 people.
Yeah. And so that's why. So that's why, being able to, publicly, acknowledge people for successes inside of these large groups are important, because I'm telling you, sometimes it would amaze me in bigger teams how you could have people who sit right next to one another, never talk, even though their work is directly affecting one another. They'd be
you look over hey, that's my foul, but I'm not gonna say anything. I wonder if he likes it or not. Let me see.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I have found at the end of the day that when I take care of my people in production, the project does itself. The project makes itself. And all you have to do from a production standpoint is make sure that, those people are the right people in those spots. right? Like this person's the lead designer, he's the lead animator, the lead artist, the lead coder, or whatever. Like, make sure those people are quality, give them air cover, make sure that they're mentally in the right space and they're empowered. And as a producer, you got a lot less work.
Yeah.
Because all you have to do is take care of them, and they take care of you, and they take care of the project.
That's true. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So ASC Games, we got from Acclaim to ASC Games. ASC Games, you were there for 3 years and 2 months. So that's still executive producer. And we already talked a little bit about Interplay, but then you made the move to Interplay. So what was that? Were you, at one point, was it you working with Interplay from Game Tech as being like a liaison, or did you go right into like going to Interplay when you were mentioning it before, like you went to go work there?
So I was at ASC Games from Acclaim, and
okay,
and a common theme
Okay.
in this industry is, if you're not a huge publisher, you might be around 5-6 years or something like that.
It's if you have a success or not.
If you have a success, because it's a hit-driven business, right? So ASC was doing okay, but it wasn't doing like gangbusters, right? And so the funny part was this was right after we did the PC version of Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
And
so was that you guys did the port? ASC did the port of Grand Theft Auto?
We did the PC version of the first GTA, and then that version of GTA was on the PlayStation.
Okay.
And so a lot of my production staff at the time, and QA staff who was working under me, when they closed up shop,
did you stay until they closed?
Oh, yeah, I was the last person in dev.
How was that experience? Like,
it was fine, and I'll tell you why. It was because at that point I was kind of tired of New York, right? I was just like, I need to get out of New York. I need to get out of New York. Like most of the industries in California, I have friends who are in California. I really need to get out there, right? And I had been talking to Interplay at the time, and so I got a job offer from Interplay about 3 weeks before ASC decided that they wanted to shut down. And so everyone, it was funny because everyone else got, here's today's your last day, here, everybody can bounce except Travis. Like, Travis, you have to turn the lights off. And I was like, so I have to work for my 2 weeks? Everybody else, okay. So, and they were like, look, Rockstar really wants to, actually, I don't think they were even Rockstar at the time. They said, like, Take-Two wants to, bring you on, and all of my QA, all of my production people are still at Take-Two / Rockstar now.
Oh, wow.
And they've been there since the first Grand Theft Auto, since the first Red Dead.
Life is good.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the funny part is that, but they were like, so you want to go to Take-Two? And I'm like, that's kind of weird. First of all, I was like the boss for Take-Two, back in the day, right? I don't want to go there and be like just an employee. And besides, I want to go to California. And so,
man, not regrets, but when you think back, were you like, was it like your friend when you're like, oh, I wasn't on it when he was telling you about GTA, and you're like, that's not gonna work, and then you're like, hey, it worked. Like, did that not come up in your mind, that moment of being like, maybe I should?
No.
Look,
I know the people over at Take-Two, Rockstar. It was a different environment.
Okay.
It's an environment that I know me.
And that's
And
important.
I wouldn't have, if I had to characterize what I feel like Rockstar is, I think Rockstar's like a fraternity. Right.
Yeah, that was actually how things were back in the day, though, because I remember when I first started, we met at Interplay when you were there. It was, I would say, it's like that.
We
that
met
was my
before
first
Interplay.
We met before Interplay, yes, because I came out to E3, and then I met you when I was there.
Before that?
No, I met you at E3 because I came out to E3 with my resume and my business cards, and I met you at the booth
Where were you working before you were at Interplay?
I was at Dreamforge. But I didn't know you.
I know that, but I still met you.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I did.
Did you come visit?
Dude,
You came to visit. No, you came to visit. First of all, visit them. I think you came to visit like Mike and Joe and all them and all your friends and stuff. I didn't know you at that time because when I came out to meet you,
I know this, but what I'm saying is this. Okay, seriously.
You making me think like, wait, am I missing something?
No, yeah, you are missing something. And you know, this is a thing, but it's not a thing. You don't go to a developer in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And see a black dude.
Yeah.
And not go, what is he doing here? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
my cheeks are hurting.
Yeah. So I knew who you were. You know. So when and look, when I got to Interplay, and I started doing a lot of internal production, right? And you know, and you're like, who can I get from places? And I straight up pillaged Dreamforge, right? And so when your number was up, I was like,
but I didn't know that. Like I remember going out to LA, getting off the plane and being like, yes, this is where I want to be. And I went to the booth and I met you and we talked for a long time. Your hospitality to someone new in the industry was like amazing. I remember that vividly. And then you're like, well, how long are you in town for? This and that. And we talked about everything. And then when I left, you're like, okay, well then I'll see you next Friday. I'll talk to you next Friday. I'm like, man, did we just do all this? And I'm never gonna hear from this guy again. But you know, Friday came around and I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. This dude's real.
Almost 20 years later.
I know, right? It's been a long time, man.
Yeah, man. So that's but that's what I'm talking about. Like, you know, for me, I got to tell you, like, I remember, because being at White Wolf, I remember this, like, and going to Gen Con, getting close to a lot of people who were at Westwood Studios at the time, right? And so they were making Command & Conquer, you know, Dune, you know, Legends of Carandia and all this other kind of stuff. I was just like, you know, oh, man, these people are awesome. And I met a producer there. A producer's name was Ed. And Ed was a producer of Red Alert, which I think is probably the best Command & Conquer that has come out.
That is a fun one.
And Ed was awesome because, yes, I was, you know, this designer and PR director at White Wolf, but it was clear that I knew games. And I said, look, Ed, like, I really want to do this. I mean, I would love to be at Westwood Studios, but, you know, I feel like I need to step my game up before I get, you know, big time like that. And it's funny because at the time, like, I had already gotten 2 job offers from Richard Garriott. It was Lord British back, and I was scared to death to go to Origin or EA to work on Ultima, you know, and that's where I met Richard Garriott. I met Warren Spector, and I just felt like those guys are big time. I can't even imagine being in that particular scenario. And so I ran from that. But, you know, and I asked Ed, I said, Ed, I really want to do this. Tell me how. And Ed, successful game producer, right, made, you know, a game that I, to this day, I think is the bomb. And I said, you know, how can I be down? And he just straight up took several hours of his day, walked me through my resume, and said I would highlight X, Y, and Z. So, you know, so you could do this, right? And so when I see hunger, when I see, you know, people who are committed, I feel like from soul standpoint, there's no way I can let that go without helping, because I still remember being that dude.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you were there for 2 years and 2 months. And we worked together for just a little bit there, because it was Digital Mayhem first before it got completely turned over into Interplay. But then from there, I remember when you left, I was like, what? And you went on to WB.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah. It's almost like, from talking to you, you were so excited. Like, you were like, because I think it was because it was that transition into games, and WB was about games, movies, TV. It was like everything. And you were just like, oh, Like you couldn't wait to like get it, like meld into everything you possibly could there and like communicate and network and everything. And you were over the moon.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Well,
I remember you gave me a tour of the lot. I think one time when you were like, "Yo, you got to come through and come check it out." And you were like, "That's where they shot that. That's where they shot that." You already had everything memorized. Like,
yeah. I mean, you know, that was, you know, the time at Warner Brothers was.
It was like rock star moments, man. Well, from me looking in at you, it's like you got elevated because you could see the desire and passion in you exuding of like, it was like I made it, I'm here. You know, you were still new there, but that's how it came across.
Well, I mean, that was the case.
Yeah.
But the funny part was, it's like the WB games that you see now. Like, I was the first employee.
Wow.
I was employee number 1, right? Because the decision to get into games was born out of the strategic planning division inside of Warner Brothers, right? Because they had been in games, and they were the people who eventually decided that they should take all those ET cartridges and bury them, right? So that's Warner Brothers.
Yes.
And so they were like, should we get back into this? And so those ideas start in strategic planning at Warner Brothers. And so they had to find someone who knew games, right? Mm-hmm. So here I am, right?
Okay.
Like, and so in addition to that, like, you know, having to work directly with the Wachowskis and do everything that is Matrix, which, you know, was one of my favorite movies of all time. It was both intimidating and exciting at the same time, but I had to fight battles differently. Mm-hmm. And although the language that they speak in Hollywood is English, it is completely different from the English that you realize, right? And knowing how to speak Hollywood is something that I had to learn because it was not what I was accustomed to. And so I had to ride that line, which was very interesting. And being in strategic planning, for example, everyone came to work in a suit and tie. Mm-hmm.
Your outfit, your attire did change. I remember you dressing up more and stuff like that.
And the funny
but you're
part,
in their element.
Well, yeah. So the funny part was, it's like, so I have to come to work. I have to wear this, you know, these suits and these ties and all this other kinds of stuff. And I remember this, like, the first day I went to go see the Wachowskis, and then, you know, I came in there with a suit and tie, and they're like, you know, and, you know, it was sort of like this. It was crazy because I'm sitting here reading like the Matrix sequels, right? And when I'm sitting here reading the Matrix sequels, there's their table was a big circuit board, right? And then they had this huge camera was pointing at me, right, like right down at me, and I had these scripts in front of me, and every page had my name on it. It was the first time I ever seen a like one of these top secret scripts with my name on it, and a camera pointed at me, right? And I'm like, you know, and it's funny, I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually reading the Matrix sequels. And they had this sort of this different vibe about, you know, because they were looking at me like, who is this dude from Warner Brothers coming over here?
And especially because you had a suit on. I think if you would have dressed like how we dress in the game industry, they would have been like, okay, but what we finna do?
Yeah, mistake number one, right? Yeah. And so the funny part to me was, it's like after my initial sort of, you know, them sort of looking at me like, you know, I remember I used to go visit the studio every Friday to give them updates, tell them what's going on, read more of the script. I felt like Batman because, you know, I look to my left, I look to my right at Warner Brothers. I go into the bathroom, I take off my suit and tie, put on ripped jeans, like put in the earrings, and I, you know, had this still nose ring at the time, and so on and so forth, and you know, and then I'd be like, oh, it's me, and then I go to see them, and eventually they got to the point where they loosened up, and I said, you don't understand, like you caught me in my Bruce Wayne outfit, I don't usually get down like that,
Yeah.
So, and so working at Warner Brothers taught me like the film biz, right? Like how people talk, like how in a meeting it's funny to not hear what people say, but hear what people don't say. Like, what didn't they say, right? And you grow. And so going from Warner to going to Sigil, for example, which was these were guys from that did old EverQuest.
Mm-hmm. You're working on Vanguard there, right?
Yeah, and look,
you were oversight on design and code.
Yeah.
Okay, so you, even as a senior producer here, you still went back into
the team was
fundamentals of.
Well, the team's huge.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I wasn't the only producer.
Oh, okay.
And being on a development level, you have to have like the Vanguard team was over 150 people. Okay, you just can't have one producer, right? So so basically, production split up into several different groups, and so I was design producer and code producer. That taught me Vanguard taught me a lot about patience.
Okay.
Right. The team in particular, because they just made EverQuest, so you couldn't tell them shit, right? Like
they were coming from a win, so they had a little cloud about them.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And at the time, I've been in the business for about 15 years.
Okay.
And because I've been in business for about 15 years, I had gained a healthy respect for things that have happened before me. There have been several games that I have tried to emulate, didn't do well, and learned from them. And so when I saw people making these mistakes, I wanted to keep them from making the mistakes. But it's smart people that I found that you had to manage smart people differently. And to be honest, I think I feel like I made some mistakes at Sigil where I wouldn't make today. And it was how I deal with smart people. Because I feel like when you're really smart, no one can tell you shit. But there's a difference in between being smart and being wise. Right? Smart, you can look at a gas stove and say that's hot. That's hot. I shouldn't touch it. Wise is looking at that same gas stove, taking a look at your hand where you've been burned several times and say, it's hot. I know it's hot because I've touched it, and I'm not going to do that, right? And so what's the fundamental difference there? The fundamental difference is that I think that when you're making something that's creative and technical, usually you're trying to do things that people have never done before. So there's not a decent roadmap there unless you've gone through that that process several times, right? So that's the touching of the fire, right? Smart people will go, well, I mean, that fire's technically hot, but how hot is it, right? And now a wise person says, you better not touch that. But a smart person's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, right? You learn really well from an ass whooping when you're smart, right? So when you're making product, when you're making games, you can get it right, but it's the iterative process that ends up taking the time. You usually need time to get it right. Like a smart person will get it right eventually, right? The question is, how many swings at bat does that smart person have before he hits that home run, right? Now a wise person will go, I'm gonna wait for the right pitch. there it is, right? And so that's the difference. That's the the difference is that if you're trying to get from A to B, right? A smart person will get there. A wise person usually get there with less steps, right? And that'll end up saving you money, right? So a lot of the Vanguard people were smart. They just weren't wise.
Gotcha.
And I tried to force wisdom when you can't, right? Like as a producer, and I've learned this and I've used it, and it's been very effective for me, is I'm not going to stop you from having what I think is a dumb idea. Instead, what I'll do is if I think it's really dumb, I'll speed you on your way to that. Right?
To help them see the error in their ways. Or?
Well, maybe.
That's a tricky road.
Or you about to show me something, right? And so a lot of times at Sigil, what I would say was, it's funny because I have a lot more experience than you, but I never say that I'm right as much as I say I strongly suspect. Right? Okay. Because I've learned to be dubious is a good thing. Like, when I saw Lisa come to my office, for example, and show us like, hey, here are these index cards, right? And you take these index cards, you turn them to the side, and that we call that tapping. And seeing like Magic the Gathering happen at that point, right? Seeing Sam Hauser come, and talk to us about robbing and stealing cars and being dubious. Seeing, having a conversation with Vince about, how a first-person shooter is supposed to be, and me saying, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. After a while, you need to cut that out. You need to stop thinking that you're right all the time and think that I should allow for the fact that you might be right. Okay? So with that in mind, you tell me what you need to do to get from point A to point B your way, and let's go fast. Okay? Because what I want to do is I want you to get to that point, that inflection point where you can say this was either a good move or this wasn't. Because if I keep fighting you, for example, all we're doing is spending money and going nowhere, right? In production, the only bad decision in my mind is no decision, because no decision keeps you in this loop, right, where nothing ever gets done, right? A bad decision will get you to a bad place, and you can look at each other and go,
how much time we got left?
Let's do something different, right? And so for me, when I think about in retrospect, like Sigil was a crazy place, if I did a little bit more of that, I think that it would have been it would have been better for me. At the end of the day, they just didn't have money to pay me because we were supposed to make a Marvel game, and that Marvel game went to another studio, and so which eventually got me to Sony, which was a great.
And
place.
Everything happens for a reason. I mean, it's good that you're still having those learning moments. It would have been crazy for you to say, oh, things just didn't work out, but it's good that you still had that as an experience that you haven't yet had, or being able to practice wisdom, or knowing that you should have practiced a little bit more patience and being wise. That's important. It's good to know.
Yeah, I mean,
keep in mind.
Look, being introspective about about things, and it's crucial, and I think that in production in particular, one of the, and I don't know if I would limit it to production, but I'd say making games in general, the worst trap you could be in is using yourself as your test market or making a product for you. I respect the sweetness of it, right? Like, I'm making things that I want, and that's great. But at some point, you have to make what players want.
Yep.
Right? Like, it's not just about you.
And that's a fine line, too. It's different to say make what players want, and then you iteratively keep changing your idea and throwing things away. I think that's a fine line. It's a little different than getting feedback from fans and then just gutting your system and trying to make it over. It's about making what, as a gamer, what you would know is fun and what other people would know is fun based off of like data, market. There's a lot of stuff that you can pull from as a producer. I would think you're looking at a bunch of things.
Well, now you are. Back in the day, you didn't have that. Like, having any analytical data. You didn't have that. Like, you had your instincts. But now it's not even a question. I mean, there's so much data that you can pull from your games now to tell you like what people are doing, what people aren't doing. That there's almost no excuse for having a really bad product at this point. If you have the time and you have talented people, like, you shouldn't be making bad product.
Yeah. And even at that time, 2006, 2011, the internet for gaming news and everything still wasn't where it is now. Like, you were still talking about like waiting to see the Game Informer, still waiting to see Game Pro magazine. What did they say about the game? I think 2006 was there was Moby Games, but that wasn't reviews. That was more like they were trying to encyclopedia or try to get everybody in the industry to communicate on this website. But it wasn't like what a Gama Sutra is or a Kotaku at the time, because those are even different now.
Well, okay, so there's the internet and then gaming as a discipline has changed so dramatically. Like in the 30 years that I've been making games.
Dated.
What year is it? Holy cow! Yeah, it's changed a lot. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, like at Acclaim, their biggest expenditure sometimes was getting the word out and getting a license itself, right? So Acclaim would get like a license for something like WrestleMania, or Spider-Man or Batman or something like that. They'd make a crappy game and put it out on the market. And your mom or your dad would buy this game because you like Batman, or you like,
it's almost like the name sold it.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what, if it was good or bad, they made money hand over fist.
Well, who knew?
Back in the day.
Who knew whether or not it was good or bad? Where were you gonna go?
Yeah.
Like a lot of
the
times
money's been spent. no returns.
Well, it's not just that, but there was no reporting mechanism.
Yeah.
The best you had, I think, was GamePro.
Yeah.
They'd have those different things, but no one read those things. No one who had any buying power. It was your mom or your dad, right? And because it was your mom and your dad, they didn't know. All they knew was it like Batman.
Yeah.
Hit a new Batman, and so as opposed to now, where everybody know your game sucks before it ships. What's that about?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right?
All the leaks, all the E3 leaks, they're doing that even now.
Right?
Before next week.
Right. And so so the point is that so you have that, right? And then you have sort of the influence of academia, which I'm jealous of to this day. Because it goes back to the fact that I didn't want to go to school. Now I see like all these, DigiPen, USC, DeVry, have all these, have like bona fide curriculum for gaming, right? And so I look at some of this stuff and I go, this is the stuff I did. Like, and people are like, how did you know this and how did you know that? I said, no, we just messed up. We just messed up until, we said, yeah, let's not do this anymore. Let's not do that anymore. Like, I'm jealous of students at this point. I'm jealous of students now because they get to make those mistakes in school using the same tools that we use professionally.
When repercussions are not the same as a 10, 20, $50 million budget.
Please believe that, right? And so for me, that was, so those are the fundamental changes. And in addition to that, making games, online games, in particular, or this move from making like a discrete product, like, yeah, I made this Batman game, throw it over your shoulder, get working on the next one. I worked on this, throw it over your shoulder, work on the next one. No, that's not, no game that I feel that's top tier doesn't have some sort of live plan nowadays for continuing content, for keeping it, fresh or whatever.
Yeah, especially with that new Stadia. I think
Stadia.
Stadia. What do you think about that, man?
Oh my God.
Did they not see on live crash and burn? And I was an on live patriot. I got that. I had the controller, and it was fun. But it just internet bandwidth wasn't where it needed to be for that to be successful in my eyes. But what are they doing, man?
Man,
what do you think about that?
Stadia?
And they pushing it hard, dude. I was on
okay,
YouTube.
okay.
I was on YouTube browsing.
All right.
All I had was Stadia ads and like, you want to be a founder? Buy this, and you get the black controller, or you get that midnight blue or something.
What do I think of Stadia?
Yeah. You never know. All right, like you just said, we don't want to burn bridges.
No,
it's not about saying anything bad, but I just want to, as a gamer, what you think about the Stadia thing coming out?
Okay, so I knew about Stadia like a year and a half ago.
Oh man.
Right.
Okay.
And I remember actually being at Game Tech, and we had this thing that was called Game Tech Cinema, and it was this way of streaming, content from a CD to your computer, so that you could see movies. And so I remember this diagram that we had that had a CD access speed, and then it had like the speed you would need to have, full-blown video. And this is the time when you had like CD-ROMs that were like 2 times speed, 3 times speed, 4 times speed, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. And I remember that going, man, if these transfer rates get good, man, we could do some crazy stuff, right? Like then, you could have nice looking movies and all this other kind of stuff. So fast forward to now, we're looking at the transfer of data from anywhere to you
on any device.
Device.
Yeah.
So fast that you get 4K 5.1 audio. It is close to a virus that is beneficial that I have ever seen.
But everybody doesn't have those speeds. I mean, when you look at like Comcast and Verizon and people who have FiOS and people who don't, like it's a huge difference. I had FiOS before, and they don't have FiOS where I'm at now. Dramatic difference on my upload. But
so how mmany Blu-rays did you have before you had your PlayStation?
I had none because I used my PlayStation as my Blu-ray player.
You see what I'm saying?
So, but it still seems a little different because I went on the Stadia site and I saw that on the low end, if you have 10 up, 10 down, they don't recommend you even using it for that. You will have a stereo sound output, and you will also have like I think it's like a 720p or 1080 at minimum. On the other spectrum is if you have 35 up or down.
Right,
you'll be able to experience that 4K or the 5.1 because they're not doing 7.1; it's 5.1. Yeah, but there's a huge gap in there. When I have FiOS, man, we're talking about 150 up, 150 down.
That's what I have.
It's like amazing, but I'm not about to rip out the streets to get stuff put in to like get access to stuff.
Well, okay, all right. So let's put this in perspective. Okay, so you've got Stadia saying that in order to get this 4K crazy thing, you need this sort of bandwidth. Okay, who do you know who has 4K TV and the ability to experience 5.1 who doesn't have hella pipe at their house? Okay, most people now are just fine with 1080p gaming, which is like I think it's like 15 or 20 or whatever, right? But I've played a 1080p experience on Stadia during the beta test that was less than that, and I was still getting that level of quality.
Performance, the feedback, like it seemed like when you were pressing the button, things were happening. There was no latency issues.
No. And so I think that it's a crazy time to be both a game player and a game maker, because the consoles are almost indistinguishable from one another. They really, they from a graphic standpoint, from an input standpoint, and for to a large degree from a service standpoint, right? They're almost indistinguishable. So your challenge becomes, how do you make that different? How do you, on a per console basis, and or where do you make your purchasing decision from? right? And I've been in Best Buy a lot of times, saying, in some mom or some dad or something comes up and sees me looking at games and says they need to make a purchasing decision, like which one, would they go with? And I remember one time I was working at Sony, and I was in a Best Buy, and a lady asked me, like, what should I get? Should I get a PlayStation or should I get an Xbox? Right? And I said, so you know your kid, right? And I said, yeah. And I said, how important is Halo to your child? Right?
That's a good indicator.
Yeah,
it was a bomb back then.
Because that's it. And if your kid could care less about Halo, get a PlayStation.
That's what made me buy an Xbox. I bought an Xbox just for Halo 1.
There's
That's
probably
the only reason.
Well, but now there's a different reason, which is your ecosystem, right? Because it's like, say for example, you have a choice. I'm gonna go to this bomb ass club, okay, or I'm gonna go to this okay club. Now the difference is, where are your people at?
Does the OK Club have half off on drinks?
No, they do. But if the half off club, that's the OK Club.
Yeah.
If that's where I'm at, if that's where all your people are, it doesn't matter whether or not the bomb ass club is, because you're gonna be there by yourself, not doing anything, and so on and so forth.
Spending too much money.
Trying to get some friends and so on and so forth, right? And so, but so now the situation becomes, where are your people? Mm-hmm. Right? Because games ideally bring us closer together, right? I remember this old EA commercial, and the thing that really got me is that they said, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that I'm better than you, and I can prove it, right? And so you want to be somewhere where people see you. You want to be someplace where you're lauded. You want to be someplace where you feel important, and that's usually where your people are, right? Okay, so now, that's when you had to make a decision whether or not you're going to go from PlayStation to Xbox.
Two-party group. Xbox.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. Who do you know don't have YouTube?
Well, it's not don't have YouTube. Who doesn't have access to it? I think a lot of people have access to YouTube.
No.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's having it, though, right? Yeah. Everybody got it, right?
Not all the people are paying for the YouTube Red right now.
No, that's not the question, though.
Okay.
I said, who don't have YouTube?
Everybody's got it.
Okay.
Got it. On every device you can think of.
Please believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, okay, it's not the OK Club. It's not the cool club over here or the pristine club. It's everybody's club, right? And so to be a game player and a game maker, you're going to want to go to the club where everyone can get in at some way, shape, or form, right? You creating sort of material that appeals to all of them so that they could give you their $2 or their $3 or whatever. That's what it's about. It's, like the PlayStation 4 has got like 91 million in sales or whatever worldwide. But think about every device that has YouTube. That's the platform you want to be on.
So what do you think that's going to do? If this takes off and is successful, what do you think that's going to do to PlayStation, Xbox? Do you think they're going to have to band together?
They already
just
are.
Open up they are on certain titles.
Like streaming.
I'm talking about fully. And I don't know what you can do with backwards compatibility.
I have this conversation with my friend who used to be at Microsoft. His name's Leon. And Leon, I'm PlayStation because I worked at PlayStation, and he was Xbox because he worked at Microsoft, right? And I said, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, dog. You're not HBO. PlayStation is HBO, and you know it, right? Because you got one show. That Halo show is the bomb. I ain't gonna lie, but that show only show. Look at these titles on PlayStation, right? And so that's why I asked that question. Like, how important is Halo to your child, right? So what's gonna happen is all these companies, in my opinion, are going to be content companies. Okay, gaming content, and so. What it's going to force them to concentrate not on that kind of tech, but on their content, Okay. And that's why you saw, like last year, Microsoft just started cutting checks to every last developer they could get their hands on. Okay. Because they knew. Like, they bought up In Exile, which is our old Interplay people. They bought up Obsidian, who is also our old Interplay people, and so on and so forth, because they knew that, you know, at some point it's about, you know, do you have the Game of Thrones? Do you have, you know, what kind of original programming do you have on your service that is going to get people, right? That is all that matters now. Okay.
So you think that the Xbox and PlayStation are just going to become channels?
Oh yeah,
within the Stadia marketplace.
Well,
where you just go there and now you have access to that catalog of games they have.
I don't know if it's going to be through Stadia, but you know, they're clearly building, you know, their own sort of alternatives to that. I mean, everyone's doing it. Amazon is doing it. Verizon is doing it. Like, all these people are making that technology happen, right? So I love that. I love that because if you think about Stadia from just a technological, like you know, you brought up the first streaming service. What online
was the first one.
Okay,
and it was a great plan. I thought
it was, but tech wasn't there yet.
It wasn't,
right. It wasn't there. But if you take a look at, like, you know, YouTube, for example. I mean, this is scary. I mean, I just want you to picture this in your head because I don't think a lot of people connect the dots. Okay, so I'm playing this bomb-ass game, like whatever it is. Let's say it's we're playing a first-person shooter. Say we're playing
just any first-person shooter.
Any first-person shooter. Okay, I hit a button on my controller, right, and now it's broadcasting live.
PlayStation does that now.
I'm not done.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. It's you know, we're playing Ghost Recon or, you know, or Overwatch or whatever. Okay. All right. Now you see me playing because it's streaming on YouTube right now, right? And I call you and I go, yo, man, you need to get in on this. Now, conventionally, right, that meant you had to go to, you know, you had to go to GameSpot, or you had to go to go buy it, download it, get the patch, get the other patch. And
you gotta wait.
Get the other patch.
Yeah. I just put the disc in. Well, I gotta update.
You know, and all this other kinds of stuff, right? You're on YouTube, right?
Okay, I see where you're going.
Double click, and you plan right away.
Yeah.
Right away, Ed.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's already loaded.
No, I got you. I feel this is just like our.
It's already loaded. You had no updates.
Yeah.
Okay, you did have to pay your money to get in, but you joined from a YouTube link, man. Like, from a YouTube link. Like, just get in, right? And so the thing about it is, it's like, you know, we talk about how we are separated as people, and I think that, you know, people are just community oriented now, right? And so I'm telling you now that your game has the opportunity to touch anyone who has a YouTube link. Anybody who has a YouTube link now can see your game and play your game on an old dusty computer, as long as it runs. You know, as long as you can get video feed, as long as you can run Chrome. You think about that for a second.
That's
I mean,
true.
You know, why would you even bother? Like, I remember, like, I have like a PC. I have a PC, and you always worry about upgrading it and upgrading it and upgrading it,
That's
upgrading
true.
it. Nah, man.
I mean, we're
Chrome.
on PlayStation. We're talking about PlayStation 5 coming out.
Yeah,
soon, right?
I got Chrome. And a joystick. Holla, right? Like, you don't have to buy, you don't have to spend crazy money in order to get that. And so for me, like, I looked at Stadia and I said, so what I have to do now, like, say I'm playing Destiny and I got a raid going on, right? Like, how do you do that normally, right? Like, and now you're telling me that all I have to do is have that Chromecast and my joystick and good internet. Player, I don't go anywhere without good internet. It's like, to me, it's like hot water. Like, when I don't have good internet, I'm like, yo, dog, I ain't gonna make it over here. Like, I ain't gonna make it. Right? And so being able to take that gaming experience to a phone, a tablet, a TV, damn it, anywhere with a screen is where YouTube lives.
That is like a virus when you think about it. But yeah, no, it's definitely a good one.
And who else has that fat pie like Google?
It's
right?
only Twitch right now that has the other outlet for streaming games and seeing stuff.
So for me, when it was almost like my life flashed before my eyes when I saw like just Stadia as a concept and said, holy cow, like this literally changes everything.
It's going to be weird, I feel, because you won't have to drop like $1,200 on like a new console with an extra joystick, at least a game or two to play.
Yep.
It's almost like all that money can just get funneled into Stadia if they are able to capitalize on the market of gamers and people, casual players, whoever, to like buy into their service.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, if you just think about if you think about YouTube as this uniting sort of feature, right, which is the Google backbone, you start thinking about like the games that you can play once you stop thinking about whether or not you have the minimum requirements or they have the minimum requirements, because all that's gone. Right. If you stop thinking about the inconveniences that you have from patching something to uploading, all those different things, like, and then you match that with something like a Google Assistant that could, like take you through things. And I remember the first time, like I the concept of handing a virtual joystick over to someone on a PlayStation was crazy. It's basically like, okay, so let me get this right. I can't get past this part, but we're both connected online, right? Okay, well, you drive, right? So you can do that too, right? Like, gaming is about, a lot of times the advances that we get now, it's not about graphics. Sometimes it's not about sound. It's about how we interact. What are our verbs? Like, and when we get a new verb, things change a lot. Right? And so the ability to be everywhere on any screen, accessible to anyone.
It's a big deal.
I don't think people are ready for, because it's not just going to be Google. Okay? Everybody's going to have to do this. But at the end of the day, it's what is that content on the other end that makes you say, I'm going to give these people $10 a month, or I'm going to give these people $12 a month. And it's, look, I mean, I don't know how many people cancel like HBO after Game of Thrones left, but that's what we're dealing with now. That's the, I mean, for example,
I don't think that many people did. Chernobyl was the new hotness, even though it was only a limited.
Please
limited
believe.
supply.
Oh my God, that was scary. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, it's like
no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. But yeah, well, I grew up in the '80s, so I know what happened. So for me, like taking a look at, what Amazon does, for example, or what Netflix does, that keeps, that $9 in your pocket, like for example, like Disney Plus is going to be crazy, right? I mean, I'm getting it for Star Wars.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm also getting it for all the Marvel goodness too, right? And so that's what I'm saying. Like, in order to survive, in order to be, because that's the only difference between HBO, Showtime,
AMC,
Sony, Microsoft now, is the content that is available on their service. This content just so happens to be interactive content, right? So, and that's why, like, to buy an Xbox, for example, for me, was to say I don't care about Uncharted, Gran Turismo,
right?
The Last of Us. I'm not going out like that, right? And so, if they make it easy for me to get that content, and it's just, I'm gonna sub into this at $10 a month, I'm down.
But see, I think that's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna still have those mega hit titles to play.
Why not?
Because I think they're gonna be looking on their back end. It's the same thing with why you don't see those titles on Xbox. You just don't. You don't see The Last of Us on Xbox with them toting a PlayStation 5. You already know that catalog that's going to be coming with them. There may be a new God of War,
maybe
more,
maybe
another. They might even just hold off Last of Us and just wait and just put it out with that. Who knows? But just like the deals they haven't been able to make now, they're not going to make those deals unless there's something they're getting from it. It's the same thing with Steam and Epic. With Steam, a lot of people tried out and are still using the Epic platform for games that they have now, but they don't have a good system on feedback. They don't have a good system on return policy. They don't have a good system. And that's where Steam has all these things down. It's just like, what was it, Origin that came out for EA. Like, a lot of people were like, oh, I can play the Battlefield or whatever that was that came on there. That's the only way you could play it. But how many people still got Origin accounts? Not too many people. Well, so it's the same thing as that. I think the same. We're going to be repeating history and doing the same thing over, because I remember when the Division came out, I thought that was going to break everything for people, because they sold it as you can come in at any time. I need support. You're on your phone now. Drop in air support for me. That never really worked. It didn't work at all.
Well, look, there's going to be some growing pains.
Yeah.
For all of us right now. The cool part, at least for me, is that Sony has their squad, right? Which is
a squad.
No,
I think Sony's the best right now.
Well, what I'm saying is they've got their Naughty Dog team. They got their Guerrilla team.
Early
their
purchases
Sony
too.
Santa Monica team. They got the Bend team. They've got Sony's got their San Diego team doing MLB. They've got a lot of different squads that do work, right? And those are always going to be around for Sony creating original content. That's why Microsoft went off and bought those companies, so that they could corner off that talent in those genres. So they're going to do your Gran Turismos. I'm sorry. They're going to do your Fables. They're going to do your Forzas. They're going to do your Halos and your Gears of War, for example, on the Microsoft. That's what you're going to get on the Microsoft channel. There will be channels.
See, that's what I was saying. It has to be channels, because them not making it that way, they literally are secluding the people who have bought consoles and don't want to go into this streamed way of playing games and not owning any content.
You're not going to have any choice. I don't think you're going to have any choice.
I think people, as long as people demand wanting to buy a disc or whatever it is, a cartridge, there's always going to be a market for that. But why are they going to be expensive?
Okay, so let me ask you a question then. What's the last CD you bought?
Oh, a CD.
Yeah,
you talking about for gaming, or are you talking about to listen to music?
To listen to music.
Oh.
Yeah, doesn't that sound stupid?
Man, when was the last time, what was it? Not Hollywood, but what was the name of that?
See,
Goody Music or something?
See, you can't even remember. It's like, that's what I call hits or whatever like that. See what
That's
I'm
a long
saying?
time ago. But at the same time, I personally haven't downloaded music either in a long time. Yes, because of YouTube, and yes, because of other means of streaming stuff. But that's a different. That's
Why?
Two different things on different tracks and at different times, though.
Let's take it up a notch then. Okay, what's the last DVD you bought?
So I have Apple TV. No. The last Blu-ray/DVD, because that's how they sell them now, was Interstellar. I bought that because when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I need to buy this because this is awesome. So I think that was the last one I actually went out and purchased.
So how long ago was that? That was like 3-4 years ago, wasn't it?
It was about 3-4 years ago.
Okay, so see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's no... So that's...
But you're still talking about music and games. They're on different tracks.
No, I'm talking. See, you're separating them. I'm not. What I'm telling you is content is content. Now,
okay.
you seem to want to separate them because they're not interactive.
The user base is different, and
in what way?
It's different because depending on the title, let's just say like your GTA.
Okay.
GTA 5 came out. And because it was coupled with GTA Online that worked, because they tried to do online with 4, it didn't really work out that well. People are still playing GTA. It's been years since it came out. But, when you buy a disc for music, there may be a few tracks on there that you really love that you're going to listen to. And then ultimately, you're going to find a way to get them off that disc because you don't want to have them on that disc and you only want to hear the 4 you want to hear. It's different. It's totally different.
You think it's different, but it's not. And I give you a perfect example. Okay, so how many Apple TVs do you have?
Just the one.
It
was a gift.
Okay.
So I didn't even buy it.
Yeah, but it's still come on now. Come on.
Blessings.
Okay.
Blessings
What I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, okay, so I got the second generation, either the second or third generation Apple TV, right?
And I'm talking about the box. I'm not talking about a television. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I got the Apple TV.
Okay.
Then I mean, I have a whole case of I have about 400 or 500 Blu-rays. You see what I'm saying?
Why? Why did you buy so many Blu-rays?
Because the streaming wasn't a thing when I was buying these Blu-rays.
Okay.
And that used to be a thing. I remember like going to, Best Buy on a Tuesday.
Oh yeah, new content comes out.
New content came out.
Everybody saving their checks.
And then you just go and you just, that's what I did.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Don't nobody do that now because that's when, as a matter of fact, it's like, man, it's on iTunes. Now iTunes gives me like a heads up when my, when the movie's out because I pre-ordered it or whatever. It's right there, right? I don't have to stand in line anymore. I don't have to do any of those things anymore, right? That content is right there for me, right? And and so, especially when you start talking about games in particular, like, like the resale market is just stupid, right? And it just, I think it doesn't allow people to fully realize like, the what their games are actually doing out in the market. But when there's no physical thing to return, you can keep all that money. You see what I'm saying? And people actually start seeing what games are worth or what they do. So, and I remember this. Like it was yesterday. Like, me being mad at games in particular because I go, $60 is not a high price to pay for a dope game, but it's a real high price to pay for a shitty one. Right?
Yeah, you're talking about those 4-hour experiences over like the Zelda 50+ hours.
Well, I'm not even talking about hours. I'm just talking about the experience itself.
Oh, okay, just
the overall experience.
Okay.
Like if I feel like I got robbed because I spent my $60 on some garbage, right? Or maybe a concept that I didn't know anything about. And I said, we've got to, and I remember actually when some games would come out, and this was back in the day when they were like $19 or something like that. And the first thing I'd be like, what's wrong with that game? Like, why is it $20?
Yeah.
Right?
It's in the value bin.
What's or it just came out and it's $20 and I'm like, something ain't right. Like that game's like, and I was like, there's got to be some way that, like, how can we get experimentation back into gaming? Right? And that's free to play. Right? Premium, premium sort of, experiences and things of that nature. And so that's how gaming has changed. Being at Sony, for example, and then going to, I remember like just trying to get a game greenlit at Sony.
Different process.
Man, like it's not even a different process as much as it is like a frustrating process because once again, we're talking about their squads. Right? So you go, hey man, I want to make a driving game. And they go, better than Gran Turismo? Oh, okay. I want to make an adventure game. Better than Uncharted? Damn. I want to make a sport game. Better than MLB The Show? You see what I'm saying? So you were in this situation where they had almost everything all locked, and because of that, it was hard to get something greenlit at Sony. So you get the PlayStation Network, right? And they say instead of 20 million, 40 million or whatever to make a game, here's one or two. Make a simple game. We'll distribute it even for $10 or for free or whatever. See what people think. And if it's dope, you take that and you build on it and you build on it and you build on it. And then now all of a sudden there's an indie side that you can test concepts. And then when people can either pay nothing or very little for a product, they'll take it, see what it's like, and then you can monetize afterwards. So I think that, online services where you can take a simple concept and put it out there for people is the best thing that's happened to gaming. It's sort of like, like I said, having an independent sort of movie market to some degree. You don't have to spend that money, but your concept, your moment to moment experiences have to be awesome. And then when they are, and you've seen these indie game developers that hit on some new concept, whatever it is, and then you take that and you can plus it up the next time. So like what'd you say it was? Did you say Interstellar or no Inception?
Interstellar for what I bought, the last DVD. Yeah.
So homeboy Nolan started off very simple too, with Memento, right? And he kept hitting and his budgets got higher and higher until, he's jumping Batmobiles. You see what I'm saying? And so, and that's where I think it's nice and healthy for, our market to cultivate these different sort of areas of exposure.
Yeah, I'm not against Stadia. Like I said, I was a early adopter to the OnLive, but it's just when it went away, that's what was kind of the letdown. And so I'm having flashbacks. I think that's what I'm dealing with. Having flashbacks of what it was like and how cool I thought it was going to be, and it was for a moment. It's just I think they're gonna have to go, like you said, growing pains. They're gonna have to go through those issues where they're not gonna get the content that they want. I mean, there's games coming out now that look amazing. What is the name of it? The one with the guy who played the Punisher. He's the bad guy in it.
Yeah, it's Ghost Recon.
Yeah, the Ghost Recon game. They're gonna be right on Epic. I don't know if it's going to be an exclusive, but they said they're going to be like a day one Epic release on their platform for you to play it. So you're kind of like, oh, they're going to make me do this. But which is what Origin did. Origin made you do it.
But Origin, see, once again, that was, I think the difference between having there's a difference between having a Netflix. Okay. Or old Netflix and new Netflix. And what I mean by that is old Netflix used to send you CDs and DVDs.
That's true.
New Netflix just streams.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they still have a DVD option.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is like that's the new, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at these Epic stores, they're not streaming as much as they're sending you this data so that you can run locally.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I just don't see the point in that. I really don't. I mean, like if I have both of these,
Well, the point is offline play. Not many games still offer offline play, but
when are you offline?
Whenever the power goes out. Or well, if the power's out, you can't play nothing. But you can play it on your phone, or you can play it on your device or your laptop or something if you still got your battery. But if the power's out, you don't have internet, but you still got offline play.
Okay, so let's talk about that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you got offline play.
Okay.
Well, no, like say I want to play a Stadia game and I don't have any power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all streaming. What are you gonna do?
Oh, well, that's easy, because I still have my cell phone. That's probably at least 4G.
Towers are down.
Okay.
Like, what are you gonna do? You see what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
then you fight zombies. I mean, at that point, you got bigger problems than your Stadia accessibility.
You can't be in a shit hits the fan moment, and you're like, my Stadia is still working.
I mean, if it's a zombie apocalypse, I ain't got nothing for you. But what I'm saying is, it's like under normal circumstances, like I have a tablet, okay, that has internet connectivity. Okay,
it has its own signal.
Yeah, it has its own signal, and I'm communicating with Google servers already.
Okay,
I'm still playing. You not with your PlayStation. Wah, wah. You see what I'm saying? I mean, to me, like there isn't really a game that I play now that isn't always connected. It's very few where I'm straight up local.
Very few are even being made that.
Yeah, like and so this. It's just the way things are. Like you got an Apple TV, and you said it's been a minute since you've actually bought.
We just buy digitally.
Physical. Yeah, you just buy digitally, and most of the time, even when you buy digitally on Apple, okay, yes, you have local storage on your Apple TV, but you don't use it. You're always streaming. So if the power's out, you can't watch a movie either, player.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think they store it. I think it's all in the cloud, though.
Well, you can't. If you buy,
there's a hard drive in it.
Well, yeah, it is.
I don't think, because it doesn't give you an option to save to the hard drive.
Not really.
All right.
But you can, like for example, you can load games on your Apple TV.
Oh, I haven't done that.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is that everything is streaming, right? And so now we're just talking about your games too. And so yeah. So for me, I guess the part that's got me so hyped is that you used to have so many different impediments to your gaming experience. Like, I don't know how to hook this up. I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that. And the fact that I can take top tier, gaming experiences and play them on a tablet with my joystick, basically anywhere. I mean, I can get a free Stadia. I bought one. Mm-hmm. Right? Because that's the kind of initiative I want. And you know what? It's not like I'm religious in that way. As soon as a Microsoft one and a PlayStation one comes out, I'm going to be right there too. Right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're telling me all I need is a joystick and the cloud.
I think by that point, if Stadia does prove something in what their service is going to allow, I think you may be on the money with that. I think instead of it being channels for Xbox and PlayStation, they might just have their own. It's a new joystick you just buy and just do it. I don't see why you wouldn't do that at that point. But they're gonna wait. I think they're gonna wait and see if it works.
I played the Assassin's Creed, mm-hmm. the new one, on Stadia, almost to the end, mm-hmm. right? And just to freak myself out, like I would put my PC. I had my PC.
You about to use all your bandwidth. You turn it on all the devices.
Well, check this out. I put on my PC. I'm playing on my PC, mm-hmm. and then I had my laptop, my Mac laptop, mm-hmm. right, which you can't normally
right.
You don't game on.
You're talking about a whole nother segregation of right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And so I put that right next to my PC. I started to run down the hill on the. On my PC, I clicked play on my my PowerBook, finished going down the hill, right?
No hitches, no nothing, no latency, nothing.
Nothing.
It's just a video at that point. Is there an initial load though? Is there an initial load time of
there's an initial load time when I started the session.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It had to load on the server, but once it was on the server, yeah. So as soon as I hit let's go on my Mac, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was like she lifted up her leg on the PC and her toe hit the ground on the Mac, and I was like,
"It's pretty cool."
Yes, sir.
Oh man.
And that's and look, dude, look.
I'm gonna have to wait till the second gen.
You have to understand, I started making games
on
Game Boy.
This is your analogy of wisdom right here. You're like, I've been through this. Yeah. Dude, get on this train.
And so this, and so for me, this is exactly what I'm talking about, mm-hmm. when I say
touching the stove.
I've had my share of being dubious, mm-hmm. but when I see it in action.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Capcom. We've already gone, I think, past all these in our conversation.
Yeah.
But so you went from Sony to Capcom.
Yep.
For a year.
Yeah.
For mobile and social stuff. Games were changing. This is during a phase of game industry was changing a little bit.
Look, all I can say as far as Capcom was concerned is I met a lot of good people there.
Yeah. From Capcom, you went to director. So you went out of the producer.
Was doing some startups for a minute, and I still think it's pretty prime. A couple of my friends, we were
contested.
Yeah, let's is gambling a thing?
Okay.
And I still think it is.
Yeah. There's too many laws.
Yeah, it's a lot of laws, and state lines and all that other kinds of stuff. But we're gonna get there, and I guess
might be gambling with crypto. Maybe
what I'm saying?
That might be the next big thing, because then it's decentralized and you're just playing a game at that point, quote unquote.
Yeah. And so I tell you, to sum it all up, going from from Capcom to Digital Domain to Magic Leap. Mm-hmm. Magic Leap was probably where I perfected my let's deal with smart people. I just
2 years and 5 months. Yeah, because the other ones it's like you were going through a phase. You're looking for something. When
stability. I think a lot of people.
Digital Domain.
I think a lot of people look for stability in this business. Because game companies.
Blink an eye, they're gone.
Blink an eye, they're gone.
Yeah.
And look, Magically.
That was a big deal. That was a big deal when you went to Magic Leap. I remember talking to you about that. And
Like
oh my God.
And I still believe
in what they're doing.
In what they're doing, because I look at certain things and I think of them as technological sort of eventualities, right? Like we will get there. It is just that how do we get there? If you look at a smart device, and I say smart device because that's essentially what they are. I think they make you smarter. They allow you to have access to information like that historically has just been, you just
when you go into the library, man.
Like going to a library now seems like ancient. It seems like using an outhouse or something like that. Like what is a library?
It's mostly daycare. From having a kid, it's a good place to take your kid to expand their learning and stuff. But other than that, you don't really have a need to go there.
Right. And so for me, like I remember like thinking about what augmented or mixed reality can do, and it takes me to a new place. To tell you how old I am, for example, like I remember having one of the first electronics that I really liked was this Casio watch that I had, and this Casio watch,
it's either Casio or Timex back in the day.
It was Casio, dog, because what I could do is I could keep phone numbers on my watch. Before then, I just knew all my friends' phone numbers, like in my head, right? And if I didn't, I remembered the pattern on the phone, right? But I only had like 10 or 12 friends, right? When this Casio watch came around, I could put like 100 numbers in there, so I had more numbers. So, but what I did was I seeded this knowledge for the knowledge that
free up some space.
I could free up some space, right? So now, it's so different, because now I have this smart device, right? Now with this smart device, I'm able to, go that step further. Like for example, I doubt you know anything but your mom's number, maybe your sister's number, and your number, and your lady's number.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Everybody else, you don't know their number.
That's pretty correct. No.
You see what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you're smart. It just means that you have abdicated that space in your brain to something else.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And so, but in doing that, now you have access to a couple hundred numbers. You see what I'm saying? So like you pick up the phone, for example, or you could just tell Siri or, a Google Assistant, like call this person, and it just happens, right? Or you could say, yo, I'm hungry, I want a burger. Now it tells you where all the burger joints are, right? Or, and how good is that burger? Well, these are the ratings and so on and so forth, right? So that's what a smart device has done, to the point where if I were to take your smart device away from you, you would feel significantly less super and smart, and you would actually probably start having some sort of withdrawal because you feel like you are away from the collective to some degree, right? That's what a smart device does for you, right? But what happens when your smart device becomes ubiquitous to just your glasses, for example, right? So if I could take everything that is in your Android device and put it on your face with your glasses that you have on right now, you know what kind of beast you would be? I mean, it would be completely different. And what I mean by that is, that's what I mean when I say like mixed reality, okay? So, and like, say I put on my glasses, now I got Tony Stark glasses on now, right? Okay, so I could basically, and this is, you could already do this, and this is the example that I use because I think it's perfect. With a Magic Leap or any sort of advanced augmented reality device. Okay. Now, right now, I could take a picture of you. Right. Then I could do a Google search on your image that I've taken of you, and you're popular enough net-wise that I'd probably get a hit on your face. Right. Okay. And it would say Edward Bowman. Yeah. And it would probably take me to like your LinkedIn page and all this other kinds of stuff and so on and so forth. Right. And so I could do that with my phone right now. Right. Okay. So now, my phone's my glasses, right? So I could look at you. It could take a passive picture of you and say, that's Ed Bowman. Here's his LinkedIn information. Here's his past post on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, so how was your trip to Cabo?
Yeah, but that don't have that working right now like that. It doesn't work as seamless as the user would want it
No,
to work.
but see, once
The
again,
concept is there, and
see,
I think people
now,
are on board
but
for
but
that.
Ed, see, but this is when we get back to what I was saying before.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Magic the Gathering cards when they were index cards.
Okay.
I saw GTA when it was top down.
Right.
Okay, I saw Call of Duty before it was Call of Duty. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, we are in technology. We need to be better than that. It's a lot of times it's not about chasing a trend. It's about creating a trend, right? And so when you can see technology, when you can see like the ramifications, 5-10 years down the road, get on, because we're the people who build it, right? And so what I'm telling you is that yes, right now, like if you look at a Magic Leap device, it has these big sort of goggles, and it has like this this carrying case.
battery pack thing,
but look at how your old iPods used to look. Okay,
Bricks. People still use them though.
I know, but as opposed to what your iPhone looks like now, it's just super slim,
or
right?
the nanos when they went in that direction.
So that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
What I'm talking about is that so when you start so now, okay, imagine if because if you have your iPhone on your face, you all of a sudden don't need a phone either.
Yeah, but I think even for the eyeglasses that were made, it was still kind of attached to your cell phone. Like they're not a one-off entity on their own yet. It will probably get there.
So what you're saying is that at some point, this iPod and this cell phone are going to marry and have a baby. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that might be.
Yeah, that's what. We'll think about it. You think about all the smart devices that we have, right? Where our PDAs, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you think they're going to stay like this tech brick and that's it?
Of course not.
No, like every time you see, Google, a la Android or in Pixel, for example, or iPhone come out with a new version of it, they're not necessarily changing the paradigm. They're making things more powerful. Mm-hmm. There's almost nowhere to go now, right? And so that's why wearable technology, is the new hotness, at least in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Because, once again, say I take my phone out, right? Now I've got, optical character reading that I could take my phone and I can hold it up against something that's in Spanish, and then it'll tell me what it is in English, right? What if that's on your glasses?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, it's like wearable technology and doing, technology that sort of enhances reality. That's holodeck stuff, man. That's where you want to be. And so for me, I remember one of the first tests I did at Magic Leap was I want to cast spells. This is Magic Leap, right? Okay. So I had so we were messing around with like a wand, and how does it feel to actually carve out a spell in midair, and it was, you start facing new challenges. Like, for example, the coder who did it, he would throw this fireball every single time. He'd be like, boom, 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 boom. And I'd be like, every time I threw the fireball, though, it went behind me, and I didn't understand why. And it was because he made the fireball stick to the end of your wand, right? And to get it off, you sort of flicked it off. But I was doing this, right? I was doing that. And so what happened was you started to have different, once again, verbs that you could use differently, right? If you were interacting with things, okay, now even those interactions became different. Like if you're in mixed reality, and mixed reality means you're taking real things and augmenting things on top of it, right? So if there's a player or someone that you need to talk to inside a game in mixed reality, when they say come here, they don't mean push your joystick, forward to come here. It means bring your ass, right? And so you would have to physically walk over to where that person was and look under the table, or look, and so that's a thing, right? Or when you're having a natural conversation with someone in mixed reality, once again, it's tracking on your face, right? And they say, how are you doing? Well, you could say, I'm okay, because you have voice recognition. Or you could go, and they could read that, right? Like, they could read that you were nodding your head or shaking your head. And so that's how tech moves forward. That's how all of a sudden this game becomes a completely sort of different experience. On Magic Leap, we could tell when you blinked. We could tell when you blink, right?
So they had the inward-facing cameras onto your eyes as well?
Yeah, because we were doing eye tracking, right? So imagine that. Imagine a scary situation, something that's designed to scare you, right? And so say I'm over here, or the character's 10 feet away from you, right? And then you blink, and then it's 2 feet away from you. Right? Now I can scare you. It's completely different. Or just putting objects in front of you or people in front of you that are different. Like, for example, messing around with, communications, for example, right? Like, say I'm talking to you and we both have on, these glasses, right? And you call me, right? And so I see a representation of you, that I can see through my glasses, right? Well, you could be 6 inches tall, and so I talk to you like this. Or you could be 2 feet tall, and I talk to you like this. Or you're 20 feet tall, and I have to go, yo, man, can you shrink down or something like that? All these different things start to influence you differently. The best example.
Very much Ready Player One.
Yeah, very much so. Like if you watch The Incredibles, the first Incredibles, and this is an example I like to use all the time, because it's about agency. Like, if you can control how you are viewed, emotionally things are different. Like in The Incredibles, when mom and dad had a fight, and she could stretch, right? And she told him what he was about to do. What'd she do? She said, "You will do this," right? And so if you could do that virtually, things change. And so, so from a design standpoint, I don't know whether or not Magic Leap is going to, succeed or fail. But what I do know,
they're testing the waters.
Well, not just that. That's tech eventuality. That's not like some fad. Okay, that's only going to get better.
And I think that goes hand in hand with what we were talking about earlier about the Stadia, because if they can get that online to work and be efficient no matter what, and then you pair on a Google Glass Plus or whatever it's going to be for the wearable tech, it's a win-win because you already know that streaming works. You just got to make sure that person can have an avatar or some sense of recognition within it. And now you're just in this place. That'd be crazy, man.
Yeah, the thing about it is that sometimes to be forward thinking, look, you got to strike at certain times because sometimes you can have the right technology, but not at the right time. Like, I remember, back in the early 90s, for example, Sega was doing some crazy stuff, right? But they were on the right track. That they were just early. Sega created Heat. Sega created the 32X. The Activator, you see what I'm saying? So
they it's like they had the idea, but then they went vast with it, and they didn't focus.
Well, it's not just that, but conventional wisdom said you don't split your market by coming up with these different devices to add on, right? You don't do that, but
they're trying to prolong the longevity of the Genesis.
Yeah, but think about it. But think about it now, right? If that was the case, PlayStation Pro wouldn't be a thing. Yeah. PlayStation VR wouldn't be a thing, but it is, right? And so they had the right idea. I mean, look, Sega had Heat, which is their network back in the day to do online playing. So it's like all this stuff happens. Yeah. The question is whether or not you're in the right time to do all these things. But instead of being that,
especially with the competitors of they went to the Sega Saturn when they had those competitors of Sony and Microsoft on their tails, and it's like what Netflix did to Blockbuster, pretty much.
Yeah, and so you just and so that's kind of why from a technological standpoint, a lot of times I don't think this will never work at that. I just go, I don't know. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Magic Leap, that was a big deal. You went back to Florida. You went back to your home.
Yes.
Because I remember that vividly. And then Lightstorm. So how did it come about for Lightstorm? You've been there for 1 year and 10 months. You're in Manhattan Beach. You went from Florida coming all the way back to the West Coast.
Look,
How did that come to fruition? Like, was it the right opportunity, right time? Like we were talking about, strike
Yeah.
when the iron's hot, or you know?
I have, like I said, the one crucial thing that happened to me at Capcom is I met a lot of good friends. And one of the guys that I met at Capcom was Josh Izzo. And Josh is just a true nerd, like, in every sense of the word. Like, Josh has more toys than any human being that I know. But he's a good dude, like a real good dude. And a friend of mine went over to Fox, and he said, let me see what's going on over here. And they're working on an Avatar mobile game. And so when they were working on an Avatar mobile game, there was a production spot that was open. And he said, look, I know, like, Magic Leap isn't what you wanted it to be, and, like, you're unfilled. And, not only that, I mean, even though I was born in Florida, I think California is my home. Now at this point, I've been here since '99.
It's a nice place.
It is. And so, it's just like, you might want to check this out. So, so I looked at the job description and I said, yeah, let me see what was up. And so my friend said, well, hang on for a second. Like, cause Lightstorm has, an opening for vice president, doing games.
Level up.
Now, so I was like, wait, my boy is at Lightstorm. Josh is at Lightstorm, right? Well, let me call him and see what they do. So, I sat and I thought about this for a minute before I made the call, because I liken it to being me going from being a designer to a producer. I went from protecting a project, from a designer to being a producer, to being an executive producer, to protecting multiple projects, and I felt like that's in my pocket, right? And a lot of people have heard the Peter Principle, phrase, which is you're promoted to your level of incompetence, right? And I felt like I'm comfortable in a production spot in the upper echelon of production, because I have a lot to teach, but I could stay here and chill. Period.
Right. And some people do that. Some people will get to those points in their careers where they're like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then they'll stay. And that's usually like the bad thing, that the choice they make, because then it's hard to get out. It's hard to find that next position if something were to happen.
Yeah. So
that's good. That's good. This was a calling, much like what you experienced before.
Yeah, but it was reluctant though, because there's something to making games, making product that's attractive, even though it's not physical, right? Like, I feel like I make stuff, right? And I always viewed vice presidents as people that just don't make stuff, don't know how to make stuff,
right?
And just hand over bad decisions that kind of, screw up whole projects or companies and so on and so forth.
Well, that's because some people who go into vice president roles, some of them are like, oh, I used to work at Kraft, and now I'm over here as vice president,
Right.
as opposed to like you went up the ranks like big time within the industry until you got to this point. So it's a little different.
It is a little different, but now I saw that mode switch, or that change, that I had to make from being a designer to being a producer, is, do I want to do this? And there was a fair amount of fear, because I'm like, what if I'm not good at this?
So where did that doubt come from? Because earlier you didn't mention anything about doubt in your first transition from design to production. It was more so you witnessed and experienced things as a designer where you're like, hey, I think I can be a force to make things change and make things better. There was no doubt. There
This
was no
answer
doubt
mi-
in your mind.
This answer might be
So-
5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. But you see what I'm saying, right? There's a even
Yeah.
though it's comparable to the,
Sure.
it's different. So what caused you to have doubt in this experience?
I like to do things. I like to feel like I've made things. I like to be part of the creative process. And I've been doing so since I was in 5th grade. So I was the first week I was at Magic Leap. I had to go to New Zealand, to Weta, because we had a project called Dr. Grabots that I was helping them gamify or whatever, and so I go to New Zealand, and the crazy part is that because of my position in the company, I got to fly first class to New Zealand, which should be experienced as crazy. So I get there, and to go to Weta, the first thing you see are the trolls from the Hobbit, the petrified trolls, and you're like, man, this is crazy, right? Like, I'm at Weta, right? And so they take you on this tour in Weta. And so I'm in the bowels of Weta. And I'm in this room. It's the Master Armorer's room. I'm sorry, the Weaponsmith, Master Weaponsmith. You can't take pictures in there. But he makes weapons. Now, I play D&D. Like, most of the time I play some sort of character that casts spells because I love magic. So I'm in the Master Weaponsmith's office, and he's sort of doodling around in there. I'm getting a tour, and he looks at me, and I'm staring, at something, and he says, "You know what that is?" And I went, "Yeah." And he's sort of dubious, I've gotten kind of used to that because people will look at me and they don't think like I'm a nerd or I know anything about fantasy because I'm black and, built like a football player or whatever. And I said, "That is Glamdring." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "That is the faux hammer. That is Gandalf's sword." And he says, "You want to hold it?" Yeah, I do. Right? So he takes it off. I still get choked up when I think about
Oh God, yeah, you getting choked up, man. What are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Wait. So
You okay?
Just listen.
Yeah, I'm listening. It's a great story, man.
So now I'm 40 something, right? And I'm holding Gandalf's sword.
Dream come true.
And I think, holy shit, how did I get here? And I'm not Travis, a 40-year-old man. I'm 9-year-old Travis.
Yeah. It's like opening that your desk all over again, and instead of that D&D being there, it's like, oh my God, it's the sword.
And I'm
That's
thinking,
crazy.
What the fuck are you doing here? right? You made it in a lot of different ways. You're half a country away, and you have Gandalf. This is not like
a prop.
This is not some prop. This is the sword. This is the one that he made.
Yeah.
This is the one that's in it. And how many people get there, right? Because if the people in my gaming group, like the original white kids who saw me in 5th grade, or the guys that I grew up with in high school, could see Travis holding Gandalf's sword, going, holy shit, how did I get here? Right? How many people get that full circle, right? And so I knew that if I had the opportunity, I had to do more. I had to do more. And so now, right, when that opportunity, came up, and I felt like I had a lot to give magically, but it was just a struggle to do anything. And someone said, we want you to come here to tell us good from bad, right from wrong, fab from five, and shepherd, these Lightstorm properties, primarily Avatar, which was one of my favorite movies of all time. James Cameron, one of my favorite directors. Like,
he changed the game up with that movie, man.
Yeah,
big time.
Do you do it? And it's not just it's hell yeah. And so that's what I do, and I think that those things empower me. Like, so when I see people who want to do more, or are looking for their break, and if I can find talent, I cannot not help them. I can't do it. And so being in that space, holding that sword, going, this is where you're supposed to be. And so now I'm doing it, and I got to tell you, personally, professionally, spiritually, I mean, I'm exactly where I need to be, or where I want to be. Like, it's crazy. My office is 20 steps from James Cameron's, right? Like, John Landau, who's the producer that we work under, like, knows who I am, right? Like, berates me every day. Well, not berates me, but you know what I'm saying. Like
he's building a bond with you.
Yeah, but like, the crazy part is, like, like, when I tell you, like, these key moments, like, when I got there, a year after I got there, maybe a year and a month after I got there was another experience, which is I went to my first, like, full-on Hollywood premiere, of Alita Battle Angel, right? And then seeing my name scroll, across the screen. What the fuck am I doing here, right? So I guess my knowledge of elves and magic actually paid off.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. It reminds me of Get Shorty, the new Get Shorty that they had out, where he was like trying to be a movie. We're gonna be movie producers.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
that's crazy.
And so so the cool
that's
part.
Cool.
So the cool part for me is, like, and it's strange because when it comes to Avatar, like there's going to be a lot, 4 more movies, right? Like I know what happens.
Yeah.
Not only do I know what happens, but in my own area of Pandora, like I'm making whole new things. I'm making, and it's not like, oh, this stuff doesn't matter. Like this stuff is actual fact inside of that world, right? So what I'm able to do is I'm able to show people, or through an interactive medium, like this is Pandora. You can have these different experiences in Pandora, whether or not it's on your mobile phone, whether or not it's on PC or console, whether or not it's VR or in a Disneyland ride. Being responsible for a lot of that, and then being able to create, like I did back at White Wolf, creating new Na'vi tribes and areas and things of that nature.
So your influences to a product are far greater than from the design to producer type of influences, where you want to make things better for people where you just came from in the design role. It's like your influences now are like so much more grand.
Yeah, because it's almost like, and so now when I talked to Josh and I said, hey Josh, man, like what do you guys need at Lightstorm, right? And he sent me the job description, and Ed, when I tell you that, they might as well have just put, you're looking for Travis. Yeah. Because all the things that they were saying, I was like, I did that. It's perfect. And so I feel like, how it feels like that Tetris thing, right? Like all the pieces fell into place, and so Lightstorm is, I feel like it's where I needed to be.
That's awesome, man. So I want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
I think this was a gold star interview. I got some tears out of you, man. Only time I've seen your tears. Only time I've seen your tears before was many years ago. So, but I do appreciate you being here and taking the time. I think this was awesome. There's a lot to be learned from this, not even from just students or the enthusiasts, but I think a lot of people in the game industry, hearing your story and like where you came from, where you are now, and the joy that you have. There's a lot of pain, like you're saying. You have to deal with a lot of experiences, good and bad, before you get to the point of being overjoyed at where you are, that's pretty awesome. And with you're there for a year and 10 months now, but you got like years
my God.
of wealth of knowledge and experience gained being here, because you're gonna be here for many years to come. It sounds like that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I look, I respect what you're doing with what you got going on here, and it's funny because when you talk to me about this, it kind of dovetails what I'm doing. So I think that maybe we could combine forces in some way.
Nice.
Because so me and some friends of mine are getting together and creating sort of a space, a blog space, and the name of it is called Tech Nubians.
Nice.
And so it's us. We Black. We represent like a lot of different factions. Yeah. Whether or not it's production, art, anime, code, or whatnot. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people like you can do this, right? We are here. Have been here for some time, and you can check out like our resume, because we're not just like some teachers who haven't done anything. Like from motion pictures to comics to great games to all those different things. We're gonna be doing we're doing a panel at Comic-Con at San Diego Comic-Con to just let people know like the difference usually between like the people who really succeed and the people who don't is like you need to try. Like a lot of times we let ourselves like stop us from getting from point A to point B because you think, oh, it's already been done, or how do I do this, or how do I do that? And what I want to do is I want to concentrate on dispelling this myth that you can't do these things, or that you're alone, right? And it's not something that we want to charge people for. It's like when I go to a show, or when I, or some sort of panel, I get the same questions all the time, right? And instead of telling the story again, making myself cry because I'm holding a sword or something like that, like putting it somewhere where I can just tell people, well, you can listen to, you can read this, or you can hear this, and if you have any other questions, let us know so that we can build on this. So what I want to do is join forces, because I feel like you're doing much of the same work, just so that people know, like look, these resources are out there. It doesn't cost you like $8 million, just do stuff.
Right. And that's the goal of what I'm trying to do here, which is I'm offering this for free. Like I'm just going to put this online. Like I don't have any intentions or expectations of like what this is going to bring or do for me. I got to a point in my career where I was like, you know what? I want to give back.
Yep.
I don't want to go and be a teacher at some school where they give me a syllabus and they're telling me you need to do this, you need to do that. I was like, well, I got 20 years of experience. Why can't I, with all the technology, why can't I just start? And so I had a dream about what you see right now. Everybody can't see this, but what you see right now, I had a dream about this. And now I didn't draw it out because I didn't want to over plan. I didn't want to go like, oh, it needs to be this wide, this long. I just went to Home Depot and I grabbed 2 people at Home Depot and I was like, I need some help. I got an idea. I don't have any dimensions of any what way, but it needs to be this and this and this. I was there for 6 hours.
Nice.
Collected. I had 3 baskets of content.
Wow.
And they were like, are you going to buy all of this? I was like, yeah. I was like, if we do it this way, it's going to be cheaper. Yeah. I don't want to just buy something that's already done. I built all of this right here. And it was fulfilling that dream. And then I remember when I turned the lights on and I was like, okay, I need to start contacting people. I planned out everything after that point. After I did the labor, it was all falling into place. And I think the special moment for me was I stood up because this channel is about multiple things. There's interviews, there's tutorials, there's reviewing people's work. There's a lot of things, a lot of avenues that I have that I'm going down on this. But I stood up one night from staying up late and continuing on a tutorial, and I was like, man, this is gonna work. I like this. This is awesome. I feel joy from going to work every day. It's awesome. But I've been able to have a hobby now, other than working out.
True.
I have a hobby now where I'm like, oh man, I'm like double the joy. And it's all just on me. It's, I'm creating my own schedule. I'm reaching out to people. I'm reaching out to friends. I'm reaching out to people who I don't even know, and they're happy to be involved. It's amazing. And it's amazing, man. I don't even know what else to say. Like, this was a dream that I'm trying to put into fruition, and I'm making it happen. And it's crazy. So I do like what you're talking about of showing people that you can really do, other than the benefits that I have from my career and the knowledge and experience I've gained in saving, and is the only way I would be able to do this.
Sure. In
this capacity.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it can't be done. You can start at any stage.
People just need to see us, Ed. People, look, like I said, I mean, this is year 30 for me.
Yeah.
Right. And when I go to, school sometimes, during a career day, or or when I just speak to people either in college or whatever, they don't know us Black folk in particular are doing the things that we're doing, or how we got from here to there. They need to see that, right? They need to see that we're here, that we've been doing this for a minute, and there's no reason why they can't. Right. And it's not just restricted, obviously, to Black people, but you see enough, Japanese designers or.
Well, I think it means a lot because, like, I'm from Detroit, and growing up in Detroit, there was none of this. There was no outlets to see. The comics weren't even a big deal in Detroit. It was all just music and auto. Like, I'm not even joking. People were in high school talking about, I'm going to work at Ford. I'm going to work at GM. Like, there was no other outlet. People were in the newspaper club because they were like, oh, I want to be a journalist, or I want to do this. Like, that creative aspect, it was almost non-existent for what we do now.
So my boy Leon, Leon Pryor, who is part of the whole Tech Nubian, clique, is from Detroit. Mm-hmm. Moved back to Detroit. Works at Amazon in Detroit.
Well, they got a bunch of incentives down in Detroit to get people back.
Yeah, but so he's back there, doing the damn thing. As a matter of fact, he even teaches young kids now how to code in his spare time. So he's out here, he's out here now. You're out here, and I think it's a good opportunity. I mean, I think just like you said, it'd just be a wasted opportunity for us not to give back to a business and to an industry that's done pretty well by us.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, I want to say thank you for taking the time. Thank you for coming out. And your story was amazing, man. I even learned some things that I didn't know about you.
How about that?
But that's pretty awesome. So I really appreciate you. And I hope the viewers really do get something out of this. I hope you learned something new. And thank you. Awesome.
All right.